being 7:31, I'd like to call this September 26, 2019 meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Tonight we'll be following the published and posted agenda, and will be recorded and broadcast by Chelmsford Telemedia. First on the agenda tonight is announcements. I've been asked just to remind everyone that the Capital Planning Board meetings are coming up. I know, Kathy, last couple of years you've served as liaison. Would you want to continue doing that?
I enjoy it, and I'm happy to do it unless someone else would like to, do it.
So there is a change. There is a change this year.
Okay.
It's going to be at night at 7 o'clock, as opposed to being in the mornings as it has been in the past.
Okay, and do we know what days?
Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, November, basically the Thursdays in November.
Other than Thanksgiving?
Not Thanksgiving week, it's
Mhm.
maybe the first Thursday in December if it were to run long. But
Okay.
it's only for 2 or 3 weeks.
I know John mentioned the change was made in order to make sure that they could bring new people on and accommodate people's schedules.
understand.
They had issues getting to the meetings in the morning. They'll still be broadcast as they were the last couple of years, so which is good. But I don't know, Kathy, are you still interested?
I'm
Yeah.
totally interested, but
Okay.
if Amina would like to do it,
I just need to check with my husband on his schedule. on
Okay.
Thanksgiving, But if he's able to be home, then I'd like to give it a try.
Okay. We can, if you check that, get back to us, and we can
Yeah, I'll email
let
you,
John
you
know.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I don't want to hog all the fun.
Yeah.
Any other announcements? Hearing none. Going to approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening. The first is the set of minutes from September 12th, 2019. I know last week people had a chance to review them. Have everyone had a chance to review them now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one where only 4 of us were here, right?
Yes. 4 or 5? There are 5 of us here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a motion?
I'll make
Go ahead.
I won't be able to vote, but I'll make the motion for you. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of September 12th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions?
Abstain.
I abstain.
Thank you. Next set of minutes is September 19th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to review those?
Yes.
I have not read them.
I have a question. I don't know if it's for now or for discussion, but
For discussion. We,
Okay.
yep.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna-
I make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of September 19th, 2019 as presented.
Do you have a second?
A second.
Discussion?
I have a question that I'm hoping someone that was here can tell me if I misremember this. On page 5 about the CCOD, the Continuing Care Community Overlay District, the minutes state, she said that it would allow things like gas stations, auto sales, strip malls, and personal care establishments. I thought it would not. Is not missing from that sentence, or the CCOD would allow those things?
I don't think gas stations were permitted under the CCOD. I don't,
I watched it this afternoon, they said not.
It said not,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
but I'm not sure about the other items in that list.
The others, yes.
The others, I believe,
They
okay,
would be permitted.
thanks, Tom. So if we just make that edit,
I'll just get rid of the gas stations.
okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay. Moving right along. We have a presentation discussion on the Route 40 warrant articles from the Economic Development Commission.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Donald Van Dyne. I serve as the chairman of the Economic Development Commission. I am joined this evening with Sam Chase and John Wellman. To start, we want to thank you very much for giving us this short period of time on your agenda, we will make sure we stay within the 10-minute framework that you provide us with. We, to that effort, we have put together a letter which Mr. Wellman will read into record, and then afterwards, if we could maybe open up for questions, Q&A, and we'd like to hear a little bit from the FinCom what your expectations are and thoughts regarding the Route 40 study area. John?
Right, to the Town of Chelmsford Finance Committee regarding Route 3, Route 40 Groton Road rezoning process. The Economic Development Committee is a town manager-appointed body whose mission is to suggest development alternatives that strive to balance quality of life issues with desirable economic outcomes for all Chelmsford taxpayers. The committee has been regularly updated on the discussions by the Planning Board and Route 40 Study Committee regarding the possible rezoning of the Route 40 corridor. The EDC asserts the process to date has been limited in scope, resulting in a recommendation that is incomplete from a townwide strategic planning and economic development perspective. It does not acknowledge zoning best practices in achieving a positive economic result that omits any documentation of a financial analysis. At a recent EDC meeting, the town manager expressed his thoughts with regard to the Route 40 rezoning, and the EDC agrees substantially with these sentiments. 1. Consideration of the Route 40 corridor rezoning warrants a holistic town-wide view based on multiple variables, including economic development opportunity, desire to increase commercial, industrial property, CIP, future development of the UMass Lowell West Campus, and pending opening of the Westford asphalt plant. These factors should all be part of the calculus. Any rezoning should consider the big picture and be strategic, including fiscal, and community needs and strategies. Why rush for fall town meeting? It is better to do it right than rushed. And perhaps rezoning efforts should be part of the master planning process. At our September 24th meeting, the Community Development Director, Evan Belansky, confirmed that the town has been awarded a $62,000 planning assistance grant to study the 3 highway interchanges along Route 3, including the Route 40 Groton Road exit. Grant money will be used to hire a consultant to conduct a feasibility study to determine the target area's current and future economic roles in the local and regional marketplace. The consultant team will deliver its report no later than the third quarter of 2020 and will include the following efforts and processes. 1, a site visit and tour. 2, review of existing conditions and previous plans. 3, analysis of existing conditions, inventory of properties, assess infrastructure, including utilities and connectivity. 4, structure and conduct strategic work sessions with stakeholders and taxpayers to review economic possibilities, constraints, and strategies. 5, identify best market approaches that enhance the economic opportunity while respecting the area's character. 6, draft a final report that will synthesize the findings with recommendations to best position the Route 40 interchange for aesthetic and economic success. The EDC agrees with our town manager and community development director that we should not change the present zoning without considering the vital missing components of market data and financial impact analysis. That study is now possible as a result of the recently obtained study grant. The EDC believes the prudent course is to endorse a zoning bylaw supported by financial and market data to include all Chelmsford taxpayers in the decision process, to consider the potential impact of the Westford asphalt plant on development opportunities, and finally to consider the potential contrasting redevelopment of the UMass Lowell West Campus. For the reasons stated, the EDC requests that the Finance Committee not recommend the Route 40 zoning Articles 22 and 23 for the upcoming fall town meeting. That will keep the current zoning in place and will allow for further study to include the critical economic impact analysis that will result from the grant-funded study. Respectfully submitted, Economic Development Committee, Donald Van Dyne, Chairman, Thomas Boucher, Samuel Chase, Michael Kwalk, Peter McAllister, Laura Smith, and John Wellman.
So that is our position, and the EDC would encourage that the Finance Committee takes in regards to Article 23 and 22. I would like to open it up and see if you all have any questions regarding the letter and/or possibly your thoughts of what you would like to see happen on Route 40 at this time.
It was stated last week when this was presented to us in the zoning articles that while present, the EDC did not make any comment during the meetings regarding the Route 40 study and the eventual outcome and position that was taken through it. Can you address that at all?
Well, absolutely. As I served on the committee and as the EDC chair, squeaky wheel gets the attention. I didn't get any attention. I tried. I think the chair has mentioned that I tried many times to be heard and to put it out there for economic development. If you recall, the votes were 6-1. I was a dissenting vote. Multiple times I did try. There's a point where you just fall on deaf ears.
Was the committee aware of the grant that had been applied for and its process?
The EDC or the Route 40?
The Route 40 committee.
I think Evan did mention it. But at that time, it was pending and it had not been awarded.
What was the date that it was awarded? Do you know? I see here it says.
It was awarded this week,
Yesterday.
Oh, okay.
yesterday, so.
I still haven't received any official documentation, but I found it on the state's website today, that we were awarded $50,000.
50 or 62?
50 is the notice on the state.
50, and then we kick in 12.5, Paul, is that right or something?
It'd be a local match.
Local, okay, got it. Thanks, Paul. So effectively, if I can boil it down into a thesis, you're looking to do further study and to hold off on a vote and change at this time.
Well, that's pretty well said, yeah.
Okay.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
why, you have neighbors in this area that have, stated that they don't want it. Why not take the money and focus on 129 in one area first?
We actually, it's a good point, but we just completed a $100,000 site readiness study on 129, which Lisa Maroney, the business development director, is in the process now of implementing. So much like there was a study done on 129, we're suggesting there needs to be a study done on Route 40 to determine, it may not just be all economic. Economic is more than just commercial. It also incorporates housing. So when you say economic and you talk economic development, it's just not, let's create more offices or let's create more retail, more restaurants. It's also inclusive of housing as well.
If I may, it's all interchanges, it's not just Route 40. The idea is when Evan was developing this grant, we thought there was some synergies in how the entire town's opportunities on Route 3 should be analyzed.
Okay, so it's all major, all major
The three
interchanges.
interchanges.
Okay.
All right, but I don't see why we have to,
Just Route 3, not the 495.
Not 495.
but I don't see why we have to hold off on voting on this, right? You can still
Well,
do the
no,
study.
no. What they're saying is they're asking us to vote against the change.
Okay,
So it wouldn't be holding off on voting on it. It would be not voting to not recommend it.
but why?
But-
Because you can still do the study, and if it comes back
No,
different.
no, because if we vote to support and recommend this,
Yeah,
and it is supported ultimately at town meeting,
yeah,
whether by our recommendation or not, then the zoning change is made.
right.
The
And then what
toothpaste,
happens
the
if this-
toothpaste is out of the tube.
And then what happens if the study comes back
And they say,
and they say it shouldn't be that, it should be something else?
You'd have to
You have to start all over
rezone
again?
the rezone,
Okay.
which was almost impossible. It wouldn't happen. So that's why.
It would be
Yeah.
too late, okay.
Yeah, really, no harm, no foul if nothing changes, really is what we're saying.
So what was the deciding factor to look into the Route 40 now versus waiting for the study?
I think everybody has their own interpretation of how this came to a head. the planning board. If you recall, this was, I don't want to say dumped on their table, but it was given to them to review. The planning board decided that they would then give it to a study committee to review. And hence
And then
where
this
we
is-
are
okay,
today.
Okay.
Right, and so
But
this.
yet the study committee did not have all the tools yet.
I get that, but these are the people who lives in the, like, you know, are representative of that neighborhood. This is what they want. I mean, I listened to their presentation. I thought it was a fair presentation of what they want in their section of town. My biggest concern is, like, I feel like we have pockets of weird zoning and industry over here and over there and this.
Well, this
is
would be,
going.
but this would be a change in zoning.
Right.
in that
but
area.
They have a committee, this is what they wanted, these are people who live in that town, they had open meetings.
So, but let me ask you, should a committee be a representation of the entire town? Or
That's-
as you just noted, it was a defined area?
It was a defined area for that area with residents, it was open meeting, people could have, you know, gone in and placed their opinion, and it's gonna be voted on by town meeting reps.
So you agree with the zoning that's in place? That
There
was
now.
recommended? That was recommended?
I wasn't here for the meeting, so I couldn't, but I did watch it. I thought it was a reasonable zoning for that area, yes. I don't disagree with what they recommended, and I,
Okay, well, we're kind of going into discussion deliberation for voting,
but-
so we're not going to do that right now.
But can I just add to this, like, I don't really see the harm in waiting, because if the study comes out, it could end up being the same thing that the people wanted. But I agree, I'm sorry to
no,
add to the
yeah.
discussion, Jim, when you said more.
No, that's fine. They did ask a question. I just want to avoid going into our deliberations
Yeah.
prior
Right.
to
Yep.
actually being in deliberation. Does anybody else have any questions for the committee?
Have the Board of Selectmen been approached?
No, they will be approached at their next meeting.
Yeah, unfortunately, usually our vote comes first, so.
I understand that.
They rely on it.
Miss, what percentage of people actually were voting for that in this particular rezoning area? Was it everybody that was represented on the committee? I didn't get that from the presentation.
Yeah, I don't think so.
From what I recall, and I certainly, there are members of the committee here and members of the planning board here as well, my understanding was that the committee was a slice of representation from the area, and that there were neighbors on both sides of the issue. So it's not unanimously supported by the people that are living there,
Okay, thanks.
especially given public comment last week.
I just have two questions, or I guess clarification. So the EDC believe it's prudent to include all Chelmsford taxpayers in the decision process. I guess I go back to Anita's point. Wasn't the committee open to anyone who wanted to be on it? You didn't have to live in this area to be on the committee, right?
I think out of fairness, as the EDC, I don't think we're in the position to comment on how the planning board structured a meeting, put together their committee. I mean, we're here to,
Well, you make the statement that it implies that it wasn't open to anybody because you're saying it should be open to anybody.
I'm not sure we said open to anybody.
To include all Chelmsford taxpayers in the decision process.
Right. So it's our belief that not everyone was approached. If you were to go out to the 33,000 people in Chelmsford and ask them, are you aware of what's going on Route 40?
Well, I think you could pick any question and ask people that, and you'd get the same answer.
Yes, and what, you know, there's a finance committee meeting tonight.
Right.
Just don't know.
Okay, so just the other question, which is actually for Paul, just since this letter again states that the town manager is opinion that we should not change the present zoning, since you're kind of stated as having an opinion, is that accurate?
I testified before the committee. I believe this letter was probably drafted from the videotape and my comments at the meeting. I don't dispute any of the comments that were alleged, that are attributed to me in the letter. If you're asking me my personal opinion, is that the question?
Well, just if the statement is, again, since it's saying, it's stating your opinion, I just want to make sure you agree with that. That's fine.
Yeah, there's no misrepresentation. I said, I think it came from probably the videotape of my testimony to the committee.
Okay, thanks.
So when you have this you hire this consultant to come in here and look at it, what's the question you're gonna ask them?
It's not our hire, it's actually the community development director's hire. So as far as what we had,
So what are we
well,
looking
no
at?
role
What's
in
the
this grant.
question
money.
they're
Give them a
solving?
chance to respond, please. Give them a chance to respond, please.
But her question was to Paul, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
okay.
I was,
Yeah.
The goal, I mean, clearly, we're part of a whole economic development initiative on Route 3 corridor.
Right.
Middlesex 3 initiative. I currently serve as president of the coalition. And if you look at the off-ramps in Chelmsford, they're all very distinct in terms of 129, 110, Route 4, which is Drum Hill, and Route 40, which is Groton Road. To my knowledge, there's never been a synthesis or an analysis of how are these interchange areas of the community integrated or planned or coordinated to each other in terms of to best serve the community and the region. And so the goal is, let's have a professional consultant come in and analyze the economic development opportunities for the community. And the reason for that goes back to the selectmen a year ago, when they were issuing the issue about tax classification and so forth. The concern raised by the board was we really need to expand the town's commercial tax base. Because the board felt that the 80-20, which is now less than 80-20 mixture, was insufficient. So that explained why this grant was applied to months ago. Again, I didn't receive official word. The award was yesterday. I think I got a call late the day before in the afternoon saying, can you come to Salem at 2 o'clock yesterday? And my schedule didn't permit it. And to date, even to now, I still have not received any official word. Early this evening, I went to the state's website and found this award. So that was the big genesis of it, was the idea of coordinating and enhancing the town's commercial district. And
So-
therefore, that goes to my comments at the Route 40
Yeah.
Commission, which are been put in place into this letter.
Okay, so is there any, so who will be who will be managing this consultant?
Well, the contract would be with the town.
Yep.
And I would imagine we would form a study committee who would work with the consultant. And obviously, the Economic Development Commission would be heavily involved because that's their mission, that's their charter, that's their existence in terms of exploring economic development. We obviously would seek some effort from the planning board and the community development director and the business development director, and probably some resident members as well, to undertake the activities that will associate with the grant.
And are we putting any parameters? Like, I guess, Mike, you can manage, and I'm fine with it, but I just want to understand what we're specifically, like, are we saying, these are our zoning laws, and we don't want to change anything? What do you recommend?
No.
Or
Basically,
just say-
What are the economic development opportunities for the community in these 4 areas? Because it's, we certainly have been focused on the 129 rezoning and
Yeah.
redevelopment. However, as I noted earlier, there are 3 other interchanges, and probably the largest undeveloped one is Route 40, but there are also some opportunities in Drum Hill.
Yeah.
That really need to be analyzed. And also, not so much on 110, but that's the 4th area. So the goal was not to constrain, saying, provide what's within this. It's basically, given the current status, given the market, what are the economic development opportunities for those 3 interchanges?
Okay, so a couple of town meetings ago, we had the whole thing about pot, and a very heated argument, and the town did not vote for it. So if this came back and said, well, that's an opportunity to increase your tax base, that's okay, like, that's fine, right?
That's something that would be presented as
Okay, I just
an
wanna make
outcome of
sure-
the study.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't impose any obligation on the town.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether, because we said, well, gee, we don't have it in our bylaws, we don't allow that, so don't look at it, or, I just want to make sure what, like,
No.
if you're asking me not to, vote one way or the other, or support or not support, I just want to understand what this is particularly looking at.
Sam, since you're kind of wearing dual hats, can I ask you what the expected CIP breakdown is going to be coming up with in this fiscal year? I know we were around 19.
It won't change substantially from what it was.
Okay.
No.
There's been no shift one way or the other?
It varies hundredths of a percent, probably.
Okay. All right. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Next Next on the agenda, we have a review and discussion of the plastic bag reduction warrant article, Article 32. And with us, we have members of the Recycling Committee.
Good evening, Aaron Cunningham, current chair of the Recycling Committee.
Good evening.
I have a quick presentation I can put up. if we
Yep,
can
certainly.
do that. You need the deck, we've got, oh, you're all set. Should come up. There you go.
There we go.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna slide over and stretch the corner. Sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
that's fine.
No,
Yep.
come on up. Yeah, come on up.
If you do come up, though, we just ask that you state your name and where you're coming from.
Oh, that's not the view I want.
My name's Lee Williams, 7 Oriole Street.
Rebecca Gore, 106 Kristen Drive Extension.
And you're both members of the Recycling Committee?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me.
You okay? Got a drink?
Let's do it this way. So thank you very much for having us tonight to discuss this. I'm not going to go through every single slide and read every single bullet. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights, and then at the end, I'd like to address a couple of things that came out of your discussion and concerns from last year when the warrant article was presented. So I'd like to address those concerns and take any questions.
Okay.
So again, the highlights of the purpose of the warrant article is we're looking to reduce the use of the thin film, single-use plastic bags, often called grocery bags, to promote the use of reusable bags, and then 3, continue to show our town's commitment to environmental health and economic concerns, seeing as we do tout ourselves as being a green community. The figures I got today in talking with somebody is that there's an average of 300 plastic grocery bags used per person per year at 35,000 or so people, which I think is getting close to our current estimate. That's over 10 million of those bags used in this community alone. I think that's if we just stop and kind of think about that number for 1 second, it's pretty staggering. So what we're asking of the committee and what we're asking town meeting reps is a yes vote. And what a yes vote would do, establish a new town bylaw that effectively eliminates the use of these bags. But I want to be clear, what it does not eliminate are the bags that you put your meat in, your fish, your veggies, your dry cleaning, and your newspapers. So all of those bags are not what we're looking to restrict right now. We're just those plastic grocery bags that are common in grocery stores and big box stores like Walmart. So just to give you an update of where we are at versus where the rest of the state is at, there's 122 towns that are currently represented by some sort of plastic bag restriction. Some of those towns are our closest neighbors: Billerica, Lowell, Acton. I won't read them all. Even Boston has successfully rolled out a plan. What I'll tell you is, although it's only 122 towns, it's quite a few. The reality is it's a significant portion of the population, because some of these towns that have them now are sizable. So it's over 75% of the population of Massachusetts is covered by these restrictions. There is a bill at the State House right now. It's been up there for a couple years. It's kind of going through the ringer. It's currently been redrafted pretty significantly, but with the number of people each year that have been signing on to that, there was almost 100 legislators that signed on, compared to, I think, less than 50 the year before. This is definitely gaining traction. And when I went to the State House to testify, what I heard is that businesses are now starting to look at this and say, okay, we've got 122 different towns we have to deal with. At some point, the state is going to have to step in and put something in statewide, so that they don't have to, so businesses don't have to deal with 122 different situations. California and Hawaii have had statewide restrictions for a long time. New York just went, so that's another state that's now has statewide restrictions. And the other stat that we recently came across, I asked somebody to look into this. There are 200 big box chain grocery stores in the state, and 50% of them are currently not using bags. And if you go to any of our neighboring towns, they have paper bags there now. There are a handful of concerns that come up repeatedly when you have these discussions at any level. The weight of overpacked reusable bags, you can put a lot more in, they're a lot more sturdy. However, my experience has been personally that when I bring my bags in, the bagger 9 times out of 10 asks me how heavy I want it. And if the bagger forgets, then usually the cashier remembers. So, I think that that's a valid concern. However, the solution to that is pretty easy. The cost of reusable bags often comes up too. The reality there is that most of these bags cost under $2. A lot of times they're 99 cents. You can buy at Market Basket, I saw the other day, has their branded bags for 10 cents. You can go to Whole Foods, they offer 3 for $2. So the reality is that the cost of them is not necessarily as big of an issue, I think, as it's made out to be. We here in Chelmsford, we've been very fortunate enough to get a handful of grants, and we've been providing free Chelmsford recycle bags at the farmers markets. If you don't have some, I have some to have you guys check out, and you can take whatever's in the bag. And we're going to continue to work on that grant funding. We've given a bunch to the food pantry, and we will continue to go ahead and try to address that. For those that are in need, we'll make it possible for them to have these bags.
And I just want to point out
you.
that I have this in my pocket.
Way too many.
Yes.
at home.
You can buy these at Hanford in the vegetable section, and you put your vegetables and your fruit in this, and easy peasy, and they're washable. So for those of you who don't want to use that plastic for that, you can do that as well.
Thank you.
No, thanks, I have so many.
So the other
reusable
big
bags.
concern that often comes up is that it is a health concern. And the health concern is that by reusing these bags, people are going to get sick. The reality, if you do any research on this, you'll find that there's often one-sided study that was done years ago. It's failed peer review on a number of occasions, and there have been several studies since then that have said, don't use these bags, you're going to get sick. That is why specifically I call out, we are not asking the town to restrict the bags that your meat goes in. If you put your meat in those bags, which I see everyone doing, you put it in your reusable bag, you're good to go. In fact, the other day I bought some meat, I forgot to put it in a meat bag, and the cashier asked me, do you want us to put that in plastic first? So again, these people are already trained to address this issue. So like anything else, you wash your clothes, you should wash your bags on a periodic basis. So I think the other things that are kind of important, and I'm not going to get into these in a lot, there's a couple of, there are some real world economic impacts to these as well. When these bags end up in our recycling, which a lot of people put the recycling in and put it in, or they think they're doing the right thing recycling it because they do have a recycling symbol, it ends up going up to the plant and it jams up the machines. It costs hundreds of dollars an hour when that system is down. Now, at the end of the day, does that mean a whole lot to us right now? Well, it doesn't, but the more often they have those issues, the higher our rates are ultimately going to go. It shuts down the plant. Plastic bags, that's the picture on the bottom right. They jam up those gears to do the sorting, and they have to shut it down, and they can only get it out by hand. I think the other thing is that, you guys know how much it costs to run the DPW and do the storm drains. Again, these bags are finding their way into the storm drains, into the water system. It's adding to the clean out. And then just from an appearance perspective, Chelmsford's a green community. So those 3 bags on the left were just a snapshot of what was found during this year's townwide cleanup. Now, again, I think there are a lot of people out there that are trying to do the right thing. They put them in their recycling. A lot of people reuse them for dog waste and those types of things. But the reality is they're ending up out there in the environment, and there are better ways to go ahead and address that. I don't necessarily want to get into the whole health impacts because that's not really what we're talking about today, but suffice it to say, when these things get out into the environment, because they're thin, they break down quickly. The problem doesn't go away. It just becomes what they call microplastics. So it's still in the environment. You just can't see it. So we shouldn't be lulled into the false sense of security that, oops, they're gone, everything's good. And that creates a whole host of other problems. So my summary today of the presentation is that, the bags are definitely impacting the environment, our health, and our community. And we have so many of our neighboring towns, including our state capital, and all of New York, that have seen the benefits of restricting the use of these bags. So I think we as citizens in the town should be able to do it. We should be able to make that change. And we can with a yes vote in the support of this committee, and a yes vote at the town meeting will impact us today immediately, but more importantly, it impacts it to the next generation that's coming up through the town. So I appreciate you listening to that part of the presentation, and there's a couple of things, like I said, we went back to your notes and some of your concerns, and I think the number one concern, the first concern was that there'd be a burden for the town collecting and disposing of the existing stock. The reality is that if it passes, they're going to have until July of 2020. Again, these stores are gearing up for it already. So even though it's not here yet, there's a plan in place, and they'll be able to burn through their stock. So there's not any extra burden on the stores to do the transition. The other concern is who's responsible for enforcing the law. The bylaw, and it's listed as the building inspector. This does not mean the building inspector is going to now add burden to his or her job to go out and check each and every store. They'll do it as a normal course of business or in the event of a complaint. I have a funny feeling that stores will just adapt because they have everywhere else. I don't anticipate a lot of complaints or somebody being, flagrantly violating the law. And then as far as, concern about just over-regulating town business, I can understand and see that argument there, but the reality is there are benefits to being green, and there are definitely offsets, and we're looking here, we're asking for businesses and the citizens to make the offset and trade and go through that adjustment period of switching from disposable to reusable, and enhancing the overall community. So with that, we'll certainly take any questions unless you guys have any other comments, and I appreciate the time.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, the presentation was wonderful, thank you. And I appreciate that you listened to the things that we had said last year and touched upon them. So a couple things. One, so New York did ban it, but in New York, they didn't ban them completely. It's just a restriction. Each county can charge what they want to for the plastic bags, and then the money goes to the county. So like, for example, so my parents live in Suffolk County on Long Island. We pay 5 cents every time we want a bag. So when you check out, they ask you, do you want plastic bags? And if you say yes, you have to figure out how many right then and there. Right. But it's still an option for someone who, say, is from out of town and doesn't know. I mean, we're talking about, right before you guys came up, we're talking about potentially bringing in more business to town from people passing through. But I'm thinking less about like the Stop and Shops and the market baskets and more about the 7-Elevens or the convenience stores or the places where people are going to stop quickly, like a Target, because they're on their way through. Some or a Walmart, right? Something like that. Have you considered the possibility of, instead of having an outright ban, I was asking you the question. So have you considered, instead of having an outright ban, have you talked about that and the ramifications of putting something in where if you wanted one, it's like 10 cents or 5 cents or whatever?
So I definitely did, because I joined the committee after this was presented last year. So I kind of said to these guys, I want to bring a whole new fresh face to this. So there was definitely a lot of deliberations. I think I asked a lot of questions, and these guys now know it. And then we did some research on what the impact of that. There's definitely a positive impact by adding a 5 cent or a 10 cent charge for single-use bags, including paper, by the way.
Right.
However, that didn't necessarily seem right for our particular community, because I think the perception is now we're just taxing them more, and we know that that's a sensitive topic. And the other challenge I believe that came up was that a lot of places let stores do it, but when the discussion happened for us, it was it was gonna be the tax getting paid to the town, and how do we handle that, and we don't necessarily wanna get into it. So to your point, it was definitely a discussion, but I think, you know, given everything that we've looked at, I think we definitely feel that this is the best way to go. And like I said, if anybody passes through in any of these other towns, they're gonna have the exact same issue. And I don't think businesses are gonna avoid us, or people are gonna say, oh, I'm not stopping in Chelmsford because I can't get that bag. What we need to do, and what we will do as the recycling committee, is we will do whatever we can to help those, especially the smaller businesses, you know, make those transitions. And I think you'll find that that's definitely an area as a committee we want to go into, so. Yep.
They can get we're not getting rid of paper bags, so they can still get a
Right,
bag.
so now that's my next question, is do you foresee that we're gonna now have the problem that we had in the 80s with the paper bags? So one of the reasons that we went to plastic late 80s, early 90s a lot was that there was this whole thing about, you know, the trees and the more paper bags that we're using. So do you foresee that this could, just nationwide even, because you've brought it up in your presentation, that this isn't just Massachusetts, this isn't even just Middlesex County, this is nationwide. So do you foresee that this could be now, we'll be coming back to the table in a few years saying that we're gonna do this with paper bags?
Part of the issue with paper bags is they don't have the graveside issues that plastic have. A lot of this is the microplastics and the health impacts that you will not get with the paper bags.
Right.
There's still the issue with that it does take energy and everything, but they degrade and go back into the environment in a much more health-friendly way.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, the reason for this article and this restriction is for the end of life of the bag, not the birth of the bag?
Well, both.
Okay,
It just happens that a lot of times the economics of it are only considered in the birth of the bag and not the end of life.
Okay.
And that, the cost to the burden of the healthcare system and in general and future generations, I don't think, it's hard to put a cost on that.
Right.
And I think Rebecca definitely would not have said that or articulated that as well. So, you know, the reality is, yes, you have to truck them in and they weigh more. But to Rebecca's point, you can recycle those a lot easier. They're not going to jam up the compactors and those types of things.
What's the difference between the grocery bags that we get in the store and like the ones that you can buy in a pack that you line your like small bathroom trash cans with? Is there a big difference between them?
Yes. The mill,
Yeah,
the mill is significant.
I was going to say the thickness is
thickness.
so these are often called thin film because they're super thin, right? Even now they've gotten so thin, sometimes they double up on the bags.
Right, okay.
We need more.
I will say that I read a study that if your goal is to stop the production of plastic, the best methodology is to install when you do something like this, is to have the option for people to buy bags, because people that are using these bags for lining their trash or whatever will now be buying plastic bags. So the ultimate goal is to reduce the actual birth, as you're saying. The methodology that is best to get to that goal is to have no bags unless you want to pay for it. But
Yeah, because people, if they're going to get these extra bags, they do have to buy them.
Right.
And also, the bags that I use for liners are compostable.
Okay.
They do exist, and you can choose to buy those.
Because I mean, they now have compostable plastic straws that are like plant-based plastic instead of petroleum-based, yeah.
When this came up last fall, I did an experiment, and I thought, I'm just not going to ask for any plastic bags, even for my meat, and see if I can do without them. And it's been a year now, and I haven't missed them. I get plenty of plastic bags, like bread bags, newspaper bags. All these are coming into my house anyway. I can use them for my trash liners. And my produce bags, they fit perfectly in my little trash cans in the bathroom. So I haven't missed them. We're not getting rid of all plastic bags by a long shot. But what I found is that it changed my mindset that, oh, I don't need these bags. I can do without. There's alternatives. And it kind of opened my mind to what else can I do away with, you know, and have a lighter footprint on the earth. So that's just one other reason for doing this. It's not going to get rid of all the plastic bags in the world, but it's a first step, and it's symbolic, and everybody learns that, oh, these fit really nice in my car or in my purse, and they're better. They don't cut my hands like the plastic ones, and they hold more. I can put them in the wash with the towels, and it just opens your mind to other possibilities. So it's symbolic as well.
Yeah, and we need to make we can't solve all of the pollution problems, and that's not our goal. Our goal here is to take one step at a time. And I think this is something that at this point we can all reasonably adjust to. But like I said, it's really up to us as a community to go ahead and make that leap. And I think there's been a lot of good discussion as to why we wouldn't want to give up that convenience. But I think there's overwhelming evidence in order to say, you know, this switch is positive from an economic, a community, a health perspective. And like I said, we're asking for your vote and the vote of town meeting reps, and I appreciate it.
I have a few questions, and I know, Eric, I think you have some too.
Go ahead.
No.
The first one, you mentioned that you don't expect any increase in the building inspector's responsibilities regarding the enforcement of this. Paul, do you know, or have you any figures about the inspections and re-inspections when the partial straw ban was put into place, how that affected and how many more inspections were incurred because of that?
I haven't received any information from
You haven't?
on that.
No, because okay, just in speaking with a couple of the businesses, I know that they had inspections and re-inspections for the paper straw issue, which was a much smaller issue. And I'm imagining that it was not just part of a regular inspection, but where they had to go out and recheck it based upon complaints and statements from other people.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is they were responding to complaints.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know, can you tell us what's holding up the ban at the state level?
I don't.
I've been reading about it in the
I'll let
paper. The bill, as it was originally written, was changed when it went into committee. And so some of the proponents that were pushing for it originally are now thinking, oh, this is not what we wanted. I'm not sure we can support this right now. They had made some changes so that, for example, if a town had had created their own restriction with their own fee or tax or whatever, then the state version would override that, and the state version currently coming out of committee would have no fee. So, say Cambridge, who really wanted to have 10 cents per bag,
currently do.
Right.
And Boston has 5.
Then that would be done away with. And they said, oh, that's not really what we wanted to do here. So my understanding is that the Senate president, wants to work with the committee again, the committee leaders, and say, let's take yet another look at this. So it's a slow process. Does that answer your question?
Well, be leading from that question, that's my understanding of the two issues that are sticking points currently right now. And the people that were proponents of the ban did want this 5 cent, 10 cent tax on this in order to allow for this kind of transition. And I'm wondering if that was the initial push, and if the committees like your own committee were wanting and recommending this, why you decided not to include that as something that we had also discussed last year.
I had that question too, because I joined this committee a little later.
We had a discussion with John Souza, and he said he didn't think we could implement it. And one of the things I had read on the website, and maybe Paul could address it too, was that there's a difference between cities and towns doing, like cities can collect a tax, whereas it's not something that towns, well, that's what I'd read about in Acton. That's why they didn't put a charge on their bags. But anyway, we did ask John Souza about it, and he came back with a recommendation that it would be difficult. Yeah.
Yes, please, John.
Since your name came up.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, when the former recycling coordinator had approached me and sent me an email and had expressed the interest of the recycling committee, so at that time I had checked with our former town council firm, and they, as you know, represent a number of communities across the state, and they had, I guess the best way to explain is when you're in municipal government, there's not a lot of room with the state for creativity. They basically regulate what taxes we're allowed to charge. And so, there's only certain taxes. So I was given an opinion, and I don't have it with me, but a legal opinion that, we're not permitted to institute a tax. Now, I'd have to see at the local level. It's different if, 2 or 3 large retailers in town want to charge a fee to, for a bag. That's their business decision, but we can't implement it. Right now, there's no law that I'm aware of, and we can check with town council again, but there's no law that allows us to have a special tax on a bag. I also looked at the fee, the fee question, and the answer came back at that time as no. So that's the reason for that response.
So, and the fee would mean that we can't ask a store to charge a fee for a bag and keep the money themselves to offset it, even though it's not coming
I'd
from
have
the town?
to reacquaint myself with that legal opinion, but I think we would be over, if we're directing a private business that we want them to charge a fee, I think we're kind of overreaching. That would be their business decision.
I mean, could it be an exemption? Could it be something written in the law, the bylaw, where it says, if a store like a Walmart wants to still have plastic bags available to their customers, for a fee, then that would be the only exemption to that ban? Would that be something, or is that still pushing it?
We could check with council and get their opinion, but.
No, I was just curious if that.
But.
It's in the bylaw, and the
Right.
bylaw has to get approved, reviewed by the Attorney General.
Right.
For its legality before it can be implemented, but what John is stating is, absent any explicit authority from the Commonwealth, the town has no ability to levy a tax.
Right.
And what you're describing is not a tax, what you're describing is a fee.
Yeah.
Just like if the grocery store would charge you 5 cents for a paper bag.
Right.
They can do that.
Right.
They can charge you for 5 cents.
Whatever they
for a
want,
plastic
right,
bag.
okay.
But if the town adopts a bylaw that prohibits it, they can't overrule that bylaw by charging a fee. And
Okay.
if the town wanted to allow that, it would have to try to put that in the bylaw.
And have it approved by the Attorney General.
Right.
So it wouldn't be an outright inability to do it, but it would have to be approved by Attorney General in order to do so.
Right, and that way it wouldn't really be a tax because the town
Right.
is the recipient.
No.
of the
Correct,
tax.
right.
It would basically be that it would allow the merchant to,
Right.
the ability to charge a fee that it would then retain. That's a private transaction, it's not a tax.
But the merchant can do that now anyways.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So, and the ban is on plastic grocery bags, but would it be on, say, if you were selling them? For example, like you can go into like a BJ's or a Costco and you can get a box of them, call them t-shirt bags, right? For like book fairs and things like that. You can go get a box of like 500 of them. Would that be included in this? Or do you know what I'm saying? So are we eliminating the sale
No.
of those thin films?
No, it's not.
We're eliminating the
It's-
distribution.
It's the,
You can't,
Okay, right.
at checkout.
At checkout, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep, no, you're correct.
So so that answers partially what my question was. I'll wait for I'll reach out to town council on the opinion. Because I'll reach out to town council on the opinion. My next question is, I noticed there's a set mill that we have in here, and it's varying per town. The one in this particular one is 4 mills. What is there to stop a business from saying, okay, we can't do 4, let's do 6? So I know a lot of businesses are doing that, and that's creating a larger issue.
Right, right now you can buy the heavier plastic bag, and it says it's reusable, so you can use it up to like 100, 150 times. I don't see people using them that much. I got
The
one,
paper store
but-
at Drum Hill, their bags are pretty thick.
CVS, especially in, it's stores
Yep.
like that in Boston have switched to the 6 mil.
Yeah, Boston, yeah,
Stop and
that's
Shop
true.
has them. In
I know
Chelmsford.
Lowell has as well.
Yeah.
And
The thick
it's
ones, you buy
creating
for
an
10
issue.
cents.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I buy those.
my concern is the law of unintended consequences
If I
here.
use them, I reuse them, maybe, because I like them, they're nice and thick, I can put a lot of stuff in them, and they last.
Have you guys discussed that, the thicker mill, because this doesn't prevent it?
As Lee said, the thicker mill is reusable. So in a sense, and they're buying them, and so you're buying a reusable bag.
It's, okay, it's,
That, I understand, but at some point you have to, it's where do you draw
Okay.
the line and when does it become reusable? The idea with the thickness is that it's easier, it will be more durable.
do you know if those are recyclable?
That I don't know. I haven't,
My understanding is they're not.
They'll look at mine, even in my car though, so get them.
You cited a lot of numbers in the presentation. Can you tell me where those numbers are coming from?
So I do have all the sources, I don't have them written
Okay.
down on that, but I will definitely.
You're gonna get a question about that at town meeting for sure.
Okay.
I will definitely,
Yeah.
I'll respond to you, and I don't want to say them now and.
Yep, no, yep.
mistake.
Okay. I know that there have been discussions in other states where this has been implemented for a while, and some of the concerns that have been raised in those states are the spike in the sale of garbage bags. Those, I know you mentioned that you can use certainly your vegetable bags and your bread bags, but they saw a significant increase in the sale of thicker mill bags after the sale, to the point where it's actually outpacing the footprint of the thin mill bags. Has there been any discussion about that?
So I.
Where,
don't- yeah.
California recently has reviewed this, as they've had this in place for quite some time now.
okay, so it was a
And-
study in California?
Yeah, I'll have
Is that what you said?
I'll have to send you the
Yeah,
link. I know NPR just recently talked about it. So I know you talked about end-of-life concerns rather than beginning-of-life concerns, although I know there are a lot of the issues that people that have a different stance on this have is with the beginning-of-life impact, which is why the people, as we mentioned earlier, tend to go towards that implementation of a fee or a tax or something as a deterrent rather than a prevention. And from what I'm hearing, this was discussed at your group, but ultimately it was decided that that's not the way that you want to go.
well, as we were recommended that we
Yeah.
basically couldn't go
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I think ideally, I would love to see that, yes, if you use a paper bag, you would need to pay for that. Or the same way with the thicker plastic bags, you pay for it. And that just encourages people to get a more durable canvas bag or something.
Any other questions?
I just have one question, and I'll save the rest for discussion. Nice presentation. I really appreciate the succinctness and right to the, stick to the facts. Slide number 3, which you had up, you don't have to pull it back up. You noted there's 122 communities that currently have some form of a ban. The State House is currently working on trying to do a statewide ban, which again you addressed. Your slide noted that there were 200 big box chain stores, grocery stores in the state that have to deal with 122 different laws. Why make it 123 if the state is going to address this problem? Especially if we end up with a state bill that preempts anything that the towns do.
We're hoping it doesn't stay that way, that they override all the towns.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things. So again, the state bill, there's a lot of work done on it. There's been a lot of change in even the last couple of months on what that was a very kind of simple bill with a 10-cent tax for any single-use bag, including the paper bags it was going to be. So why make it 123? I say why not? I mean, and I don't mean that by no means snarky or disrespectful, but the bags are getting into the environment. The bags are hanging around in our community. And all of our neighbors have seen fit to do this. So, people are driving through and, they go to Lowell and you get a paper bag. They come to Chelmsford, you can get a plastic bag. I think the benefits of asking the citizens to give up what is a convenient item and to switch to a reusable item, I think the benefits to the environment and the community certainly outweigh just waiting for the state to come around and do something. And how can we tout ourselves as a green community? How can we continue to work on getting green grants and getting our green number up if all of our neighbors have a restriction and we don't? And we have one of the highest, a large polluting item. Again, this is not going to solve our plastic problems, guys. It's not going to clean up the oceans. But it's a first step. So I think it's the right thing to do from an economic and a health standpoint and a community standpoint to go ahead and ask the citizens to make the switch.
Right. I think that every day we hear more about the extent of the problem of plastics in our waterways, and we're right near the Merrimack River. Our streams go into the Merrimack, and that goes straight out to the ocean. So we've got a greater awareness of the problem that gives us a heightened sense of urgency. That the sooner we get something going, the sooner we can stop the damage. And I just lost my second point. I'll think about it in a second. Yes. I think as more and more towns enact these bans, that will give momentum for the state to take action. So we're telling the state by doing this, we really want to see some action at the state level too. So.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is public comment. We started this process in our voting nights for town meeting a couple years ago, where we have allowed for public comment prior to our deliberations and discussions. So if anyone has any public comment at this time on any of the warrant articles 1 through 32, which we'll be addressing this evening, if they'd like to speak on those now, before we start our deliberations, please feel free to do so. Certainly, yes. If you come up, please state your name and your address. Thank you.
I'm Pam Armstrong, Scotty Hollow, the chairman of the Route 40 Study Committee. I want to apologize that I wasn't here last week. I was at an out-of-town conference, so I couldn't make it. There is one fact that I think you all need to know before you make your decision. You were, I'm sure, at the fall town meeting last year when a developer brought the project forward for Route 40, which is what started the whole committee. That developer or people associated with them had bought a lot of the properties up on Route 40, which they're now under the control of the developer. So to leave these, to wait till the new study goes forward, these properties are vacant, there's actual residents living next door to these vacant properties, and I think the whole area is gonna, I don't know the word I wanna use, but, it's not gonna be a good situation for the people that are living there with all these vacant properties around them. The land itself has a rock crushing facility and a trucking company in the back. So we're really only talking about the front of the street. And we're hoping, I know that they explained to you, we met for 9 months. We were supposed to have this for Springtown meeting, but we put a lot of effort and time into really taking a look at what was the best use of the land and for those residents that are left there. We decided to allow the rezoning of bringing IA to the street so that if those residents that are left wanted to leave, they have a little more opportunity to sell because there might be more interest. And possibly some of the developers will actually start to develop the land versus leaving it just vacant and waiting for another year to see what happens. If we don't make any changes, the developer that owns the land could very well build new homes, which, they could do right now. And that's going to take any economic development away from us because we've got new buildings there. So it's less likely that we're going to be able to do anything with the land. If they did put in, brought it IA to the street and started putting in some small businesses or things that are going to support the community, then at least we're getting some tax base from that versus from vacant properties, and we don't even know if people are going to be paying taxes on the land that's there now. If this particular developer, he was up for bankruptcy at one point, if that happened again, then we're out the money. So I don't know that to do nothing is actually a good choice right now. I think to do something, at least promote some kind of development that could benefit the town. And one of the questions you asked was, if we zone it now, what happens next? You can rezone in the spring, you can rezone next fall. When the committee comes to play and they say there's a better use, nobody's developed the property yet, we want to have a different recommendation, that can come before town meeting and be changed again. So I think that we're protecting the community and the residents and the tax base by making a change now and not leaving it the way it is in its current state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none. On to our voting recommendations for fall town meeting warrant articles. Does anyone want a brief break before we head into the fray, or are we good? Ready to go?
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm gonna take a bathroom break, because I don't know how long this is gonna take.
Well, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, I know.
You
And
have
I
32
don't want
articles
to
to go
cut you
through.
off halfway through and say, can we take a bathroom break?
Okay, that's fine.
Like I
Why don't
did
we take a
last
5-minute break, and then we'll go forward with it. It's 5 minutes.
many other.
Okay, because like,
Starting back up.
thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, especially 'cause, like the superintendent mentioned that we have a higher than normal. That broke my heart. Jim mentioned we have a higher than in the past.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting back up.
Much higher, yeah.
All right. We are on and in, voting on recommendations for the fall 2019 warrant articles. The first article is a report of town officers committees. There's no action on that, obviously, from us. There is a consent agenda. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
I say we go through them quickly, but I think we should also have a motion on, we should have a recommendation on the consented agenda, so that I don't have to read them all off, quite frankly, as I do every year. So let's look at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if we're all in consent on those votes, then we can simply say that we're in consent with the consent agenda.
When you mean consent, you mean that we're gonna vote the same way on all of them?
Yep, if we do. If we
Yes,
vote if we
yes.
vote the same way on all of them, then we
Okay.
can agree that we recommend as a consent agenda.
Okay.
So Article 2 is to rescind remaining unissued borrowing for Chelmsford Forum. Do I have a motion? Kathy? Welcome back.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Article 2, that the borrowing of $98,229 authorized but unissued balance of the $1,000,002 borrowing voted under Article 7 of the October 16th, 2017 annual town meeting for the purchase of 2 parcels of land located at Bricken Road, Chelmsford, and North Billerica, known together as the Forum, which amount is no longer needed to pay costs of the competing acquisition of property for which it was approved, is hereby rescinded and of no further force or effect.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none? All's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
7. Article 3, rescind unexpended appropriation for Progress Ave sewer pump.
I make a motion that we accept Article 3, rescind unexpected appropriation for Progress Ave sewer pump. I move for the balance of $93,200.64 from the $825,000 appropriation voted under Article 13 of the April 2015 Spring Town Meeting for the restructuring of the Progress Avenue sewer pump station and to return such unexpended monies to its funding source, the Sewer System Capacity Impact Fund.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 4, rescind unexpended appropriations for the Community Preservation Fund.
I make a motion that we accept Article 4 as presented for
thing,
the amounts of $7,689.07 and the second amount of $14,932.40, third amount $1,320, fourth $3,751.63.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 5, cemetery improvement.
I make a motion that we accept Article 5, that the town transfer $50,000 from the sale of graves and lots of the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 6, Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund.
I make a motion that we accept Article 6, that the town appropriates $7,802.50 that was received by the town from the Commonwealth Transportation Infrastructure Fund towards the installation of Americans with Disability Act compliant sidewalks and ramps along Golden Cove Road.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 7, collective bargaining agreement.
So are we gonna, now should we make a motion though to present 2 through 6 as a consent?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
No, I appreciate that. Because we have had a unanimous vote on Articles 2 through 6, which are included in the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion to recommend 2 through 6 unanimously.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. All right, yes, thank you, Amina. Now on to Article 7, which is the collective bargaining agreement. And Paul, I believe currently we have 215 for the employee contract agreement between the town of Chelmsford and the Chelmsford Police Association for Total Order of Police Lodge 110. Has there been any movement on any of the other ones currently, or?
We'll be bringing an agreement to the selectmen on October 7th for the library employees union.
Okay.
That's all we have at this time.
Okay. So what I will recommend that we do is we make a sub-vote on the current contract we have here, with the understanding that on the night of town meeting, we will likely be having a meeting to discuss any further contracts that are presented to us at that time.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept Article 7, the town raise and appropriate $215,000 to fund the employee contract agreement between the town of Chelmsford and the Chelmsford Police Association Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 110. And should any subsequent bargaining agreements be completed, we would vote at that time. Is that, or do you want 2 motions?
2 motions would be cleaner.
Yeah, okay.
So we can vote simply on, under Article 7, we vote on,
Okay.
and then that,
Okay.
yeah.
I move that we accept Article 7, the town appropriate $215,000 to fund the contract for the Chelmsford Police Association, Police Lodge 110, in the amount of $215,000.
Second.
Discussion? I'm happy to hear we have a contract in the first year. Not even the first year, but in the first half of the fiscal year of a 3-year contract. It's nothing short of a miracle. So I'm pleased, and I'm also pleased to hear we have another one potentially coming before us before town meeting. I'm hoping that we'll hear more in the near future. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Make a motion that should any additional collective bargaining agreements be completed prior to town meeting, that we'll hold an appropriate meeting to discuss.
Second.
Any discussion? That will likely be probably 6:30 prior to town meeting. Usually we hold those in the Chelmsford Senior Center. They are not televised, however, we have made it a policy now to record those, at least audio recording, for future review if necessary. And the public is obviously welcome to attend to ask any questions they may have at that time. Any further discussion?
Is there any cutoff of, if an agreement comes in that day, would we still want to, could we still vote on it, or do we need to have a buffer?
There's nothing preventing us from voting on any sort of article on the date of town meeting to provide a recommendation. And again, we provide recommendations only. There's nothing preventing us from doing that. Nothing in the bylaw, nothing in the charter that would prevent us from doing so. We can certainly discuss whether or not we believe it's prudent to do that at that time, and that would be reflected in our vote.
Okay.
But there's nothing preventing us.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Grab me 1 second. Okay. Article 8. There is no action on Article 8 because there are no amendments to the fiscal year 20 operating budget. Article 9 is the Sewer Construction Stabilization Fund.
I don't have the verbiage, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks, Paul.
One demerit. I make a motion that we accept Article 9, the sewer construction stabilization fund, the town transfer $384,996 from free cash to the sewer construction stabilization fund.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All's in favor? Aye. 7-0.
Make a motion that we accept Article 10, South Row Elementary roof, the town transfer $400,000 from free cash for the partial roof replacement at the South Row Elementary School. Said work to be performed under the provisions of the Massachusetts School Building Authority Accelerated Repair Program.
Second.
Discussion? Paul, just for clarification, this will be a prepayment with the understanding that we'd be seeking reimbursement of 55% thereabouts of the amount, which would probably hit us in a different fiscal year.
Right, we get a reimbursement.
Okay. And would the application be put in right away after we?
In fact, you can do it in $50,000 increments, so on.
Okay. Perfect.
Great.
All right. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All those in hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna take longer if you keep looking at me like that.
Huh?
I'm gonna take longer if you keep looking at me like that.
What? I'm agreeing with you.
I'd
Whoa.
like to make a motion that we accept Article 11. I move that the town transfer $95,000 from the free cash for the purchase of a replacement breathing air compressor unit for the Chelmsford Fire Department.
Second.
Any discussion? No, it's pretty self-explanatory. It needs to be replaced. And the
Guys need to
chief,
breathe.
it's 20-year expected lifespan, although it probably will go longer than that.
20 years, we'll have a discussion.
Okay, fair enough. It's written for 20 years, but it is a necessity. The current one failed. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Thank you. All right. Article 12, rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
I make a motion that we accept Article 12. I move that the town transfer $80,000 from free cash for the purchase and installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons at crosswalks adjacent to the Chelmsford Public Schools and at the High Street intersection with the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail.
I second. That was very well read.
That was, I like that.
That was very
Real-
good.
real- There was just like real feeling and heart behind it.
I can see that flashing thing right now.
Yeah.
Are we in discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but seriously. Now, there's no plans to put any berms in like there are in the center with these rapid flashing, are there?
No.
Thank God.
No, and I like how they're gonna be, some of them are gonna be motion censored, which is nice.
I think,
'Cause-
yes.
Because the one, because as we discussed,
trail.
the one at, where the rail trail crosses, Golden Cove doesn't have that, and people don't seem to understand you have to push the button.
Mm-hmm.
So they just sit there, and I'm driving by thinking, just push the button, people will stop for you. But, so
Including me.
Yeah, I would have stopped at it, I mean, because without the flashing, sometimes you don't see them because they're set back. But
Yeah.
with the flashing, it's bright, you know it, but I like that these are gonna be, or a good number of them are gonna be motion censored.
So the rail trail one, is that, so say you're going down Hunt Road and you take a left and then there's a rail trail crossing right there. What street, is that High Street? Is that High Street? Yeah. Is
that's
that
the-
where it's gonna be?
Yeah.
And there have been a couple
Because
accidents there.
that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That one's the opposite of the Golden Cove,
Oh.
because the one at there, people just keep riding their bikes. Whereas the one at Golden Cove, everybody just stops and
Yeah.
doesn't push the button.
yeah, that is very dangerous.
Exactly. Yeah, no, the concern is because technically on a crosswalk, a biker is required to, if they're going to be a crosswalk, expect traffic to yield to them, are supposed to step off of their bike and walk their bike across, at which time they first supposed to yield the crosswalk. If they are driving on a bike, they are still considered a vehicle, and they are required to follow the traffic patterns and laws in association with that. And so there have been a couple of incidents that I'm aware of that have happened over at that location. And so the motion detectors will help at least deter that from happening unintentionally. So, and I think, as Steve said, that the plan might be to put the detectors in eventually at the Golden Cove as well, so that would help alleviate that issue. But what I liked most about what Steve said was that these are self-sufficient. He doesn't expect there to be, he expects there to be minimal maintenance on these, which is great. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor? Aye. 7-0.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Article 3, the DPW Alpha Road Facility. I move that the town transfer $250,000 from free cash for the purchase and installation of a concrete top coat along the exterior surface area of the Department of Public Works facility located at 9 Alpha Road.
Second.
Discussion?
I like how you just totally went over the bituminous.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
So does that mean it doesn't have to be bituminous? We're just recommending concrete?
well, I,
Yeah, it would be much more expensive. Just ask Lowell and Andover Road, yeah. This has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, I mean, you saw the current breakdown. I've been over there, I've seen it. If they don't replace the top coat, they're gonna have to replace the entire binder coat very soon.
Yeah. It's pretty gnarly looking.
And this is not as if we didn't know this was going to happen, because back when we had the issues with the schools, when some of us started on this committee, that whole project was up for being funded, and it was broken down. Gary graciously agreed that he was going to break down the projects that had to be done at the facility in order to make sure that we could take care of any of the other issues that we're having financially in the town. And so this is well overdue. This needs to be done. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 14, Chelmsford High School parking lot.
make a motion that we accept Article 14, the Chelmsford High parking lot, and move the town transfer $550,242 from free cash for the resurfacing and installation of granite curbing off a portion of the Chelmsford High School parking lot.
I second.
Discussion?
This was the front, right?
This is the front part. The back part was done last year after a vote. It's been installed. It's no longer a tripping and or ankle-turning hazard in the back lot. It's actually a nice parking lot.
No, it was bad before.
It was terrible before. It hadn't been, it was the same condition it was in when I was in high school, as it was, I'm sure, when my parents were in high school. I don't.
Didn't they say it's actually original to the
It was original to the building,
Yeah.
So it needed to be done. I don't know I don't think it has been done on the front. There's been repairs, but I don't think there's been a full replacement on the front of the high school either. Yeah, it's time. And people are going to look at this and say, well, didn't we just do this? And the answer is, yeah, we did the back.
What happened when we did the back was, it was originally, the back and front was presented to the capital planning committee as one lump sum number. And then because we never have enough money to accomplish all the things, they split it in two. So that's what happened.
Look at that institutional knowledge. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Oh, I just want to say one
Oh,
more. Oh, sorry, never mind.
No?
No,
We're still in
I'm just
discussion,
gonna-
that's fine?
Just so, because it's also the tennis courts that they're doing as well with this project, weren't they?
No, that's coming at.
No, that's coming next, that's not
That's coming
included in that
next?
number, no.
Basketball courts and tennis courts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I think it was either Steve or Gary had mentioned that
You'll see it on Capitol, they come in November.
they had to do some repair work in order to even have the summer program in it because it was so bad.
Okay.
But it's not included in this number or this project.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor? Aye. 7-0. Article 15, transfer free cash, this says free cash, I think, to reduce fiscal year 2020 property tax levy. There is no action because there is no more free cash.
There isn't any more free
No,
cash.
there is no more free cash. It has all been used. And so that comes to Article 16, which is the transfer of free cash to general stabilization fund. There's also no action because there is no more free cash. So in years where we've had a little more free cash or a little less projects to do, we've had a transfer either to the stabilization fund or to relieve the property tax levy. I think we've seen that there was a property tax addressment done by the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board, depending on how we vote on the article. And that was addressed through that path. So I do like the fact that we're at 8% currently, Paul, in our stabilization fund, and we received a AA+ bond rating. Okay, excellent. Good. So we aren't really affected too much by the fact that we aren't transferring into the general stabilization fund, but we have to keep in mind that every year, as the amount of the budget goes up, so does the percentage change. So for future discussions. Article 17, Community Preservation Fund, Roberts Field Ball Fields.
Make a recommendation that we accept Article 17, Community Preservation Funds for Robert Fields. Town transfer $214,200 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the relocation, reconstruction, and enhancement of the ball fields located at Roberts Field.
Second.
Discussion? They have the capacity, they're able to do this.
And I
It
think
needs to
They
be.
always said this was the second part of it.
makes sense that they were gonna do the coordinated effort with the walking space, the.
Yep.
Yep.
And I just wanna say, as someone who lives close to Roberts Field, it makes me very happy when I drive by every day and I see the parking lot. It has so many cars in it, and you can see the children playing, enjoying. So it's a wonderful thing.
Okay. I'm just seeing in here the current project budget, where that funding is expected to be well and irrigation, backstops, dugout fencing, infield clay, field grading and material, and seeding. So it does cover that whole installation for people that are curious as to what's being done with those funds. Because you look at it and go, $214,000 for 2 ball fields, well, there's a lot involved with that. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. 7-0. Article 18, Community Preservation Fund pedestrian bridge across Beaver Brook.
I make a motion that we accept Article 18, moving that the town transfer $60,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the planning and design of pedestrian bridge across Beaver Brook in the town center.
Second.
Discussion?
I just wanted to ask, so this $60,000, is that coming out of the recreational land category, or is that
General reserve.
open space?
The undesignated general reserve. You remember they put the 10% buckets?
Oh, yeah,
This is just coming out of the 70% general reserve.
okay.
And it's just for a feasibility study, it's not for an actual,
Remember, they emptied those buckets to pay off the debt service for the previous project. That's why they're all coming out of the general reserve.
Okay,
so from that discussion that evening two meetings ago, this is just for the study. It's not for an actual implementation
Oh, okay, I'm
or
sorry.
building of the bridge. However, the location that they have targeted for this bridge would be where the waterfalls are on the trail off the Freeman, Bridgeman Rail Trail. I don't know if anyone has ever been by that section as you're going from the center down towards Hunt Road.
Yeah.
It's on the left where the Beaver Brook is. There is a waterfall there. There's a dirt path currently that leads to that. And there's a log that goes across.
That's being generous.
That is being generous.
It's a stick.
It's, well, yeah, it's not easily traversable, especially not the stroller. And that goes to the conservation land with the woodlot there. I'm trying to, and Paul, just clarify for me, this would allow the trail that goes straight up to 27 and then crosses over into Bartlett Park, or?
well, that's
Okay.
nice.
And that right-of-way is after for the town to the 27, it's after that piece of land that may be developed, or?
Yeah, it's further down.
It's further down?
The one that runs parallel to the house, the pathway.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions?
It's a good thing.
I'm willing to see the study. I want to see what they say. We'll see what they recommend and how it's implemented. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. 7-0. Moving on to Article 20.
19?
Oh, did I skip 19?
Yeah.
Community Preservation Fund Building Facade Program.
I make a motion that we accept Article 19, Community Preservation Fund Building Facade Program. I move that the town transfer $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund General Reserve for the creation of a facade improvement program for the buildings located in the town center in Vinyl Square.
A second.
Discussion?
Actually, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the presentation, but I believe that I'm going to be against this because unless this has significantly changed from what was presented or was going to be presented in the spring, I attended a meeting where a gentleman from the state organization that gives advice on handling these funds, and this facade, the suggestion of spending money on facades for the business buildings, if this is still business buildings, in Vinyl Square and Chelmsford Center, the gentleman said it was not applicable. And he gave other examples of where towns had tried, for various reasons, to utilize these funds for other enhancement activities, and they ran into complications because it wasn't appropriate. So unless it has, I attended that meeting, and the gentleman came right out and said, they asked about this facade program, and he basically said it wasn't applicable. So having attended that, and hearing him say that, unless this is markedly different than what was presented or going to be presented at the time, I cannot support it.
I would go further and say even if it was allowable, I would be against it. I don't know the history, maybe someone here does, but I don't think of community preservation funds being a way to give commercial property owners money in their pocket to do something to their own building.
And I totally agree with you on that.
The previous articles were community preservation funds for fields and parks and trails. Perfect. I just don't really feel comfortable that this is a good use of those funds.
Well, I think it's being couched in the form of a historic preservation, and which would be potentially a acceptable use. Excuse me. I understand the concern because it is providing funding. It's an incentive program to these commercial businesses. Oh no, thank you. I just went down the wrong way. No. I understand the concern, because what we have here is we're giving an incentive to bring them into conformity in these two locations that we've created. However, we're still providing them with these funds to do so. It's trying to speed up a process rather than following the natural course when someone goes in for work on the property to say, well, now that you're going in for work on the property, we're looking at you coming into compliance with the requirements of this overlay in order to make sure that we're meeting the concerns that we have in this historic district which we've provided. That's the natural course. This is saying, well, we want to speed this up, so we're going to offer you this grant, and if you do the work, we're going to provide you a certain amount of funds to help do that. And it's using CPF funds, which are reserved for, as you mentioned, those other public interests, such as the open space and the parks. And there's even been a discussion, quite frankly, about whether or not CPF funds could be used for playgrounds and stuff like that. That was a real concern a few years ago. So I understand the concern regarding this.
But the playgrounds fall specific, and in fact.
They
that-
now do, yes.
Yes, and so at that meeting, the person gave me this document, which I did scan in, I still had it, which is like a flow chart of how you make the decision whether something qualifies for not. And as I'm not an expert, I don't even play one on television, but reading this, it is not applicable. So, since the gentleman said at the time that that was not applicable, and my interpretation of this flow chart is it's not applicable, plus, given that, I would agree with Eric totally, in that I do not see why funds raised by all the taxpayers should be used to benefit individual business owners who are the ones that are gonna benefit from it.
Well, it is a give and take, though, and what was provided in the slides, and I think, Paul, if you can go to slide, I don't have the number, 55, I think it is?
54, the project overview?
No, use of CPC funds. Yep, that one, thank you. So, the way they're addressing this is saying that projects must be designated as historic by the Historical Commission. So that's step one. Once it's a historic property, then they have to comply with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation of an historic property. Then there has to be a 10-year preservation agreement. It's not a restrictive covenant of 30 years. It's a 10-year preservation agreement where the building owner says, and the town is required to protect that public investment. And then the project will be submitted for review to the Chelmsford Historic District Commission, and they will determine whether or not this qualifies as being in the district and being historical and can access these funds. So I think that's the way they're kind of going around.
Yeah, but I think the point is, right, I agree with you, so this is, and I apologize for not being present at the meeting.
No, I understand.
And, where I could have asked this question directly, and I don't want to seem like I'm blindsiding someone, because I am a huge supporter of economic development and making our downtown area and Vinyl Square charming and vibrant. And I actually applaud the idea of the fact that you have some funds here and how can you utilize them in being creative. But I feel very strongly that this is an end run, and I can't vote for it. And also, because of that meeting, and then my personal philosophy is I see this as a way of benefiting individual business owners who are going to have increased profits, and that the value for the overall group of taxpayers is really not there. So
you don't see a give and take here, you just see a take.
yeah, I see a take.
Take.
Take, but that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, well, that's fair.
Can you possibly share the flow that?
Yeah, I think I emailed it to everybody in the spring after I attended the meeting, but I reprinted the document, I only printed one copy, but I can email it out again.
Boy.
Oh, and there's a third page that goes through the list of,
Yeah,
you know,
so,
how it
so
doesn't.
quickly digest while we're voting. That's not I don't know, Kathy, I understand your concerns. If that was the ultimate position of that representative from, he came from,
yes, he was frank.
Okay.
And he also gave specific examples. One was about a sidewalk where the selectmen tried to like extend, like, oh, well, they tried to add a little sidewalk enhancement in, and it wasn't applicable, so it came back as a problem for the town. So, I really do applaud, being creative and everything, but in this case, I can't be supportive.
if you were to receive information or confirmation that this is in fact not, would you still vote that same way? Not an issue? Or would you still feel that you don't believe that the use of the funds is appropriate for this position?
I believe.
I guess what I'm asking,
I think it'd
Kathy.
be pretty hard to change my opinion on
Okay,
this.
I guess what I'm asking is if we should table this until the night of town meeting, when we already know we're going to be meeting anyway, and in order to get further information regarding that question, or if you don't believe that the position would change, if that makes sense to even do that.
I wouldn't feel comfortable voting based on what she brought up. Like, I'd like to just, I'd like to.
Voting
just-
or voting in favor? Would you change your mind if you had reassurance or more information about it? I guess that's my question. Because I'm not gonna table a vote if you're pretty sound in how you're gonna vote.
No, I'm not gonna vote for something that may get us into trouble. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense, so I'd like to investigate it.
I would like to think that was vetted prior to coming
I would too,
to
but now
the
something's
warrant
been
article,
brought
especially
up.
since it's reviewed by town council before it's published.
It's been reviewed by town council, and also Linda Prescott is the chair of the Community Preservation Committee, and she's also the Historic District Chair.
Yeah.
She's very conservative, as we know.
Oh, extraordinarily, yes.
Exactly, so I can assure you that this has been vetted,
Yeah, I can't see where they put something in here which would be against the regulations provided, especially where this has been vetted not once but twice.
Well, Linda was obviously, she organized that meeting, she was present, I know she had concerns, on the way it was presented at that time. So I did say, unless it's been considerably changed,
Paul, do we have a vote by the CPC on this? Unanimous? So I guess Linda's concerns were addressed if it was unanimous.
yeah, you can keep that. There's 3 pages to the document.
I mean,
There's the flow chart, and then takes the second page is by the categories, what's applicable.
When we did the church steeple, the town clock in the center, we used CPC money to repair the clock. At the same meeting, we also appropriated monies to do repairs on the church building itself. So that has occurred in Chelmsford, and where it was not and you remember, that was discussed extensively at that time. It was under the same requirements of historic and the preservation restriction and so forth.
It's interesting that you should bring that up, because the gentleman talked about that.
I was there.
I'm sorry. I forgot. Oh, you're so bad.
For a second and just address. I'm sorry, because I know.
Sorry, talking without a mic.
Yeah.
I don't know if Evan wants to go. Evan's on the commission, and he's the only commissioner in the room that's here this evening. And Evan.
Lucky Evan.
So good evening, Evan Belansky, Director of Community Development. I thank you, and I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. So since that meeting, obviously there was a lot of work that needed to be done, a lot of conversations. Those conversations, revisions took place. Circled back, worked very closely with Linda. Linda put in a lot of extra time trying to figure out how to make the program legally compliant. So as the town manager mentioned, the program is legally compliant at this point. And then the question for the community is whether they believe it's a good public investment using community preservation funds. And the slide that's up here is the primary provisions that were not originally included that made it appear or interpreted to appear to be an economic development initiative rather than a historic preservation initiative. So we've addressed and resolved all those compliance issues.
Okay. So in other words, we're approaching this as an historic condition, and therefore it would
Yeah, so that's why I
apply to
mentioned,
everything.
right.
Yeah.
If you recall, I specifically said
Although
this is.
it does have economic trappings. It's not a wolf in sheep's clothing, but it's.
Well, I applaud your
Coyote.
ingenuity, but.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. If town council's satisfied, and if Linda's satisfied, and I know Linda's very careful about these things, I do want to see those two economic centers become a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more welcoming. I know there are initiatives in both areas. If this is a compliant historic preservation preservation agreement. And if people are willing to do this in order to increase the facades, but which a lot of those businesses, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe are rented out by other businesses and they're owned by someone else. I see no issue with this. personally. Again, I'm not gonna obviously change your opinion.
No,
But that's my position. If we're legally compliant, then I understand the impetus behind this, and I think it's a good target. Because we are constantly looking, especially us as a finance committee, at increasing our CIP and increasing the economic viability of the town. I think this is one more step in that direction. Any further discussion?
No, I agree, and I think with this having to be approved by the historic district, I think it gives us a little bit more control, right? Like instead of like just a tax incentive, this gives us a little bit more control of what we will spend the money on, and
yeah. It's not a give without restriction. It's that they're.
I appreciate the clarification. I still, I'm still going to vote against it because I feel that it's.
That's fair.
I mean, I question that. I appreciate the response and the answer. And I did say unless things have drastically changed, but I'm still going to vote against it because I feel that it's benefiting individual business owners and not the vast majority of the taxpayers.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against?
Aye.
3. I'm sorry, that's 4, 3.
Or nay, whatever, okay.
Now Article 20? There's Article 20, right? Okay, good.
Okay.
Sewer capital projects?
Okay. At the end of the night, you're making this hard on an old lady.
It's only 9:24. We've gone to 11:30 before. Come
I know,
on.
I'm just saying the smaller print. Article 20, sewer capital projects. I move that the town transfer $565,500 from sewer enterprise fund fee cash for the following sewer capital projects. Lord Row Sewer Pump Station Building and Generator Replacement for $220,000. Vincent Road Sewer Pump Station Building and Generator Replacement, $200,000.
Weed Street.
Weed Street Sewer Pump Station Control Panel and Generator Replacement, $120,500. Myland Avenue Sewer Pump Station Engineering and Design for upgrade, $25,000.
Do I have a second?
Sorry, second.
Discussion. Steve gave a great presentation on this. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 21. Town Charter Amendment, Board of Selectmen to Select Board.
Make a motion that we accept the town charter amendment. Move that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to enact a special act amending the town charter to change the name of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board, to exhibit gender neutrality as do all other boards representing Chelmsford, as printed on pages, insert page numbers, in the Town of Chelmsford Finance Committee report. Recommendations and copy of the warrant article for the fall session of annual town meeting.
I second.
Discussion.
I'm going.
I love the inflection, Kathy. I wonder how you're voting.
You'll be surprised.
I'm sorry, Eric, I jumped in front of you.
I was going to say that I'm going to vote the way that her sarcastic reading seemed to be indicating she was, whether she does or not. This stuff just kind of pricks me the wrong way. So kind of a waste of time. Don't see the need for it. I mean, the town motto is "Let the children guard what the stars have won." That's got to be next. That's got to be next.
Yeah.
So I'm opposed to making this change.
I'm gonna vote no for this because I think it's, I think it's self-serving and makes absolutely no difference.
So here's my concern, and I asked this the night that they were here, when we discussed it. There's a lot of change that has to be made by changing this. This is just the first step. They have to change the entire charter, all of the bylaws and any of the, and I thought of this after, all the plaques around town, any signs around town, anything that has to do, that mentions a selectman has to be whitewashed and changed. So I don't know what the financial impact is gonna be, or just the time impact of this is gonna be. And I don't know if it's necessary. I understand gender neutrality is the position that people are taking on many different things, but the problem, the matter of fact is, it's a historic term. Do we know how many other towns have made this change?
Dozens.
Dozens?
Including cities. You know, you have aldermen,
It's a council as opposed to councilman? Councilor?
Right, today, the legislature advanced legislation on Lexington and another community to make the similar change. I mean, I would think without exaggeration, there's obviously at least at this point 3 dozen or more who've made the change to gender neutral language. All the cities have already made it. They're no longer aldermen, or there was another term for that was gender-based in the cities. So the cities are all done.
Councilman.
Councilman.
Yeah.
So now it's going to the towns. Westford is doing it, I understand, also next month.
Okay.
And you're just seeing the way they're carrying through the issue.
Do we know what the impact is gonna look like as far as all the changes that need to be made?
You don't have to
The
do them all.
next change would be,
They do.
once it's approved by the
Signs.
Attorney General and implemented, we come back at a future town meeting and change the bylaws. But we're not gonna go change plaques.
Right, yeah.
Go to select.
Okay.
Select board, those are historic and they're gonna be in place. But obviously, we'll change our stationery, but that's printed out individually.
Okay.
There's no financial impact in terms of going out and retrofitting anything that's out there in the community right now.
Okay.
And can I just ask you, are all the towns changing it to this? 'Cause I just,
Most towns are using select board.
select, because it just seems hard to.
Some of them use it as one word with a small b, which looks awkward.
Select board?
Yeah.
That's not a word.
So are they called select borders?
I can give you,
So how?
Yes,
would
yes,
be
please, Paul, thank you.
member Of the select board, is that?
Yeah, that was my question, was what's the plural gonna be?
I asked the
Or
town,
the
I asked the
individual,
town.
sorry, the individual.
Andover has made the change at 2019. Belmont, Andover, Belmont, Berlin, Norfolk, Lunenburg, Orleans, Plymouth, Provincetown, Rowley, Sharon, Sunderland, Ashfield, Boxborough, Buckland, Clarksburg, Concord, Dartmouth, Dedham, Gill, Groton, Harvard, Ipswich, Leverett, Lexington, Longmeadow, Monroe, Mount Washington, Nantucket, Needham, North Reading, Princeton, Reading, Sherburne, Stoneham, Williamsburg, Paxton, Wendell, Whately is what I have at this point, what the clerk was able to gather. The name change is Select Board primarily, although there, like I said, there are a handful within those who combined it as one word. But the convention right now is Select Board. And therefore, what do you?
Anybody change it to something totally different?
No,
Okay.
no.
I'm just curious.
What you, so, what,
No, just
so at that number I read is 27, of those who responded, and 84 have thus far, that did respond, still have Board of Selectmen. What you refer to that person is much like school committee. You're a school committee member, you could be a select board member, you could be a school committee person, you could be a select board member or person, or select boarder, or whatever, please no. But no, I think the convention is, you call it, you say you're a member of the select board. Select board member is generally what you see out there. And what I can tell you is, when I reviewed the charter, and made all the reference change, the charter, other language is pretty consistent. They use the word, the noun, and not pronouns. So that's why you're not hearing us also amending he to she and they and so forth. The charter is very consistent. And so the detailed amendment motion references all the sections of the charter. But generally, it's select board member is what the convention is out there, just like school committee member. Yeah, school committee person.
I know this is submitted by the Board of Selectmen. Do we have I know there are 2 members of the Board of Selectmen here tonight. Do you have a feeling as to what their position is in whole on this?
I don't think I'd be here with it. It was discussed under their goals, and they,
Was this a unanimous decision to make this change?
The chair is
The chair is here. I won't call him a chairman.
You can for now.
I'm actually kind of surprised it's taken this much discussion. To me, you have the majority of the board's women. It's almost surprising it's taking this long for you guys to, and there's no financial impact, right?
Well, that's what we just heard. That's what we asked about, yeah.
So to me, it's just an absolute no-brainer, you know, and I think the feeling of the board was unanimous.
Okay.
Like, just
Was
hands
the
down.
feeling of the board that the term Board of Selectmen was offensive?
No, not that it was offensive, just out of respect. It came up, it wasn't probably even talked about for, I would say, a minute. It was, yeah, that makes sense, let's move on.
I have a question. So the charter is reviewed every so many years. Why couldn't it just be a notation that when the charter is reviewed in X year, this be something that housekeeping item that be taken care of at the time, if it really mattered that
At
much?
this point, you're probably waiting 9 more years.
Right,
We just
so.
finished it.
So they didn't make this recommendation during the one that happened last year?
So it wasn't, you
This wasn't
know,
brought up by the board of selectmen at that time?
No, because it was not majority.
right.
I
So,
don't think this is, wait a minute, I don't think this is a man-woman thing, like,
Well, kinda is, but
no, I just think that's, I mean.
Well, but they're changing it because the connotation is that a selectman is referring to only the male gender. That's what the change is being made for. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not saying that I'm against it, I'm just saying that that's the reason why it's being made. Is that accurate?
Ken is just saying that the reason it's being made now is because the majority of the members of the Board of Selectmen are women.
Okay. Yeah, I understand that. I'm curious as to why it didn't come up in discussion when the charter was being reviewed.
right, because you did have a female member of the Board of Selectmen.
We have for,
So,
There's
yeah, I
been
mean, so
female
it's
members
not,
for
it's
last-
not anomaly
it was
to
probably
have.
with the momentum in the state. I mean, now you're having fire,
Right,
they're no
I mean,
longer-
I think
they're not
it's
firemen
just-
anymore, they are
Firefighters.
firefighters.
Right,
Yeah.
I just think it's just kind of how, like, language evolves, right?
Right,
Like, I just,
I'm
all
just curious why it didn't come up then. If they were talking about it's taken
right, I don't know.
this now, I meant it should have taken before now. This shouldn't be at town meeting.
But I guess what I'm saying as a lady of a different generation, I graduated from high school in 1975, and I went to college to study business administration. Everybody said, "Oh, you're going to be a secretary?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to run someone else's business." But none of that happened. So, but my point is that there's real things to be done for the advancement of women and disenfranchised people of our community, the poor, say the gay, LGBTQ community. There's real work to be done, and to focus on this or even spend time on something as nominal as this is really just, like I said, self-serving.
So you have a fundamental problem with this being done as a town meeting warrant article and
Yeah.
and it being presented as a
big accomplishment.
accomplishment when there's more fundamental
Actually,
things that need to be taken
I
care
will
of.
say that to us, it was explained that easy to do, not a big deal, but you have to change the charter. It has to go to town meeting for the charter to be changed.
Yes, that's why I'm saying, why
That's it.
can't it be housekeeping work? If it was significant or important, it could have been housekeeping work 9 months ago.
This should have already been done, is
Right,
what you're saying.
that's my point. So I'm sorry that my personal experiences of all these years is coming out, but that's my opinion.
Oh, to me, it's, find, replace, and call it a day. Like, to me, it's not, it's like.
We
if it
really
wasn't
thought when
brought
this
up,
went to
I
town meeting,
never
it would be a
even care,
30
right? I'm like,
second.
I don't care.
Really,
about the word.
yeah.
But
It
someone brought it
probably
up.
won't be.
All right.
You know better than
Yes.
that.
Find
You
replace.
know the things
Yeah.
you think are gonna be 30 seconds or never.
Like, to me, this is like, yes, it should have been done last year when they did the charter route, but that still has to go in front of, like, the town to get approved. It's not, this is a simple thing. Do you want to change it? Yes or no? Vote, call it a day.
But it won't happen that way. You know it won't happen that
But
way.
it, you know what?
I'm not saying I'm against it. I think I understand where Kathy's coming from, though, where
Yeah, I understand where
this should
Kathy's
have already
coming from.
happened.
Yeah.
It's a big deal is being made of something that should be,
Right.
have already happened.
Yeah.
It's 2 seconds. I don't know, like, someone.
But I
it's
agree with you,
like-
it is 2 seconds,
We're gonna vote on it, no
but
matter
it's
what.
something that's taking up time that could have just been done. I understand what Kathy's saying, I'm not saying I'm gonna vote against it, I'm just saying, I
Well,
get
it
what
would have,
Kathy's
so,
saying.
so just to be clear, would have gone to town meeting with the charter review a year ago.
Right.
It
But
was
by itself,
obviously
it's-
overlooked.
But by itself, it's almost, I think what Kathy's saying is it's almost like we're making more of it than it actually is.
I don't know, I think you guys are interpreting that way, because
Yeah,
I see it.
we weren't. I mean, for us, it was like
I
a
see
stroke
it
of a
as
pen,
like-
it's done.
Like, you know, adding an S, oh gee, we forgot an S, we want to add S, all right,
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
approve an S.
Somebody
Like,
forgot a comma and it made a
yes,
sentence strange, right?
Right,
Yeah, if
that's
you
all
go back
I
and
look
watch,
at it.
if you go watch the Board of Selectmen meetings, it literally was a quick question, not a big deal, charter change. It goes to town meeting, you vote, you're
To
done.
be fair, a lot of your questions go back pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot of discussion sometimes.
Yep.
Because I watched them.
Like, there has no financial impact to it. Like,
Well, but that was my one question for Paul. Is there going to be a financial impact on this?
I'm good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're fine, thank you.
Yeah, I don't care either way if it's not a financial.
Any further discussion? I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Aye. Nay.
4-3.
Guess you shouldn't sit on this side of the table.
I'm feeling wings that are happening here.
Okay, Article 22, zoning bylaw amendment. I'd make a motion that we accept the article that the town amend the town code, chapter 195, zoning bylaw by revising the zoning of properties directly abutting north of Route 40 and west of Route 3 from RC to IA to include properties identified by book and lot as 10-22-1, but I'm gonna say as presented.
As presented, please, thank you.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I would like to say that I watched the meeting, and I thought your presentation was excellent. I thought what was presented was reasonable, and I made my notation that I was leaning yes. But based on the letter and the fact that a grant has come in, I think that has changed my opinion, because I feel like waiting to hear the analysis and utilize this grant so we have something consistent at all of the intersections is a more, taking the long view, a more conservative approach. And I think rushing you could make a mistake, but taking your time and utilizing these funds might be the better option.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kathy. I understand though what the woman said during public comment, and I appreciate her coming up and speaking to us.
Which one?
I'm sorry.
Ms. Armstrong.
Pam.
Thank you.
So, and I appreciated that. But I do have a question. Paul, do we know timeline for this study? Like, what's the expectation, like how long is it?
End of Q3. So we're in Q1 right now.
The
Q3.
expectation is the end of Q3, we'll have a result.
So when,
Right, that's what I mean, of the study, the result of this, the findings of the
there'll
study.
be findings of the study, so that would be end of Q3, which is the end of March.
Right.
That would not be ready for, obviously, Springtown meeting,
So
because
we'd
it
be-
would
we'd be
be
discussing
likely
this again
fall
in a
town
year.
meeting if another committee is not prepared in order to make a recommendation.
Okay.
So we're looking at another year down the road, next year, this time next year, and seeing which of us are here.
I was generally in favor of it when we first discussed it. It feels like, not saying that it is intended that way, but it's a delaying tactic. Like, we're gonna spend, they just spent 9 months, 16 meetings.
We'll have more
They had
committees,
plenty of
things will come
discussion.
out.
I don't know if I would relate this to the toothpaste coming out of the tube. I think it's a little bit easier. If we change our mind collectively.
You can put toothpaste back in the tube, it's gonna be messy.
Right, but there's nothing that we could collectively, as a town, could not revisit it,
Right.
which would be a year, 2 years from now anyway.
Well, you can revisit, but if buildings are put in the interim before revisiting, then they're grandfathered in. You can't have something built, have something approved, and then have that go in, and then say, oh, by the way, we're changing your zoning, you go back. So that's why it's like a toothpaste in the tube, because it doesn't affect the property unless action is taken on the property. Once action is taken on the property, the toothpaste really has come out of the tube. You can't go to a property owner and say, well, we're reverting the zoning again, and therefore you can't have what you have here.
But you're making an assumption that there's gonna,
When it take place in the meantime.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And not everybody, it wasn't unanimous throughout. Presentations were excellent, the feedback was excellent. Comments tonight are understood, but you really don't know what's going to happen from here. Hearing that, some of the developers may have issues financially, might put it in a negative stance, maybe 6 months from now, and we might be discussing something else, but that's my concern.
Your concern is that nothing, if we, I just want to make sure I'm clear on your position, Vicky, that you're concerned that if we delay, that something may happen in the interim which would negatively affect? Is that what you're saying?
My biggest concern is that you can't undo development, so
Okay,
should we
thank you, okay.
rezone something and
Yep.
something starts to take place, you can't undo it.
Yeah.
And it sounds as if the developers that potentially could be assuming some of these properties may not be financially stable. You could be in a different position than you're expecting anyway. So if we wait to see what the study does, it would make more sense to come to the table with the Economic Development Committee having their final determination.
Well, the financial stability of the developer, to me, doesn't matter. If they can't build in the industrial zone, they can't build in the commercial zone, so that doesn't solve the problem.
Well, they can seek a
seems like they
variance.
own
They can
some-
currently seek a variance. It's not as if they are completely prevented from doing something. They can certainly go before the zoning board of appeals to seek a variance for some type of construction. What this is allowing is this is rezoning in order to provide an opportunity. So it's not as if we're saying that by not changing this, nothing's going to happen in the interim. It's just the process is more burdensome and arduous.
my whole thing is, I listened to the presentation. I walked away and I said, that's an area I would like to live in. I think that's nice. I think it's well thought out. I like it. So.
But
so
what you're
to
saying
me,
though,
it's like,
no,
that's
but
the Chelmsford I would like to see there. So to me, that's why I would vote in favor of this.
but you're saying that I guess I want to make sure it's very clear, because currently it's zoned RC. So there is residential on that first
Right.
200 or so feet on that block, and then there's IA behind. It's actually a section of land that's not even zoned currently. And what you're saying is a nice place to live. They're looking for the next article, which we aren't talking about currently. It's Continuing Care Community Overlay District. That's the next article we would vote on, depending on the outcome of this article.
Right.
And on that article, it's talking about what the plan would be to put that overlay district in there. Right now, we're talking simply about the rezoning from RC to IA.
But this one goes with the next one.
If this one flows into the next one.
I like that, I like that type of Chelmsford. So this is step one of step two. I think we have other areas to focus on from an economic development for fiscally, right, to get more commercial properties. I just think, yes, we can do the study, hear what they say, make adjustments, but I liked their proposal. I thought it was well thought out. They spent time on it.
So let me ask you this then, because the concern that I'm reading from the EDC on this is that they actually want the ability to have more commercial to increase the CIP from residential, and what's being proposed here is much more residential.
I like that in that area.
Do you think that, so one of the other concerns was brought up is the unintended consequences that are coming with the fact that that's a heavily trafficked quarry area and the asphalt plant's going in that location? Okay, so you still feel the best, I guess what you're saying is you still feel the best use of that area would be the multifamily or the continuing care district?
I thought that was, I just thought that fit well. I thought it was a nice compromise. It fit well.
One thing I would say is, so in the presentation it said that Ms. Armstrong had done a cursory analysis of comparing real estate transactions that were near the asphalt plant on 110, I guess?
Yes.
Versus how many transactions within a certain period of time. And from that subset, it looked like, property was still selling and moving along quickly. But they hadn't, I think from waiting, when you get a complete analysis with more, more information, it might change the perspective of whether what they want to do, which I thought was like I said, I was positive thoughts on their presentation and what they wanted to do, but you get more information, you can make a better decision. It's really kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, my fear is that, not developing sometimes just delays everything, right? It's gonna be another year before we have a recommendation, then you have to put in, it's just, I don't
Well,
know.
they
Well, I think
already
if I-
said that it was a pipe dream, too.
I did ask the question of whether or not that this was is wishful thinking, or if there was actually a discussion about actually implementing this. And the response from the planning board and from the members of the Route 40, the member that was here from the Route 40 committee said that it was wishful thinking. It's in the meeting minutes. So, I mean, this provides the opportunity for something, but does not mean there's actually something that's presented to move in. I think.
Excuse me. I was a member of the committee, I did not say it was wishful thinking.
Well, the member of the planning board did then. It's definitely in our minutes.
It was
Yeah.
the lady from the planning
Oh,
board.
it'd be Nancy, okay.
Yeah, so I just watched this today, so.
So I just, the way I would see this potentially playing out is if we defer this, we get a study, a year from now, the study says, oh, it should probably be commercial. We form a study group, made up of the same people that lived there and did the first study group, and said, well, we still want to do the same thing we did a year ago. So we didn't do anything except delay.
I totally agree with you.
I have a question. So with the new information about the $60,000 grant, would the planning board reassess their, I guess, has
Okay,
the
so
planning, has this been presented, has the additional information of the $62,000 grant been presented to the planning board for the planning board to change or edit their position on this?
So I would say first and foremost that it has been the planning board's position in multiple years that they've been before us that they are not a committee that looks into economic development. They simply look into zoning and planning for the community. That's not their position. That's not their role. The EDC is charged with making those types of decisions regarding whether or not they think something's economically viable for the town to pursue. So it's a different thing. Usually the planning board does not include themselves in discussions as to whether or not there's going to be any sort of economic viability or change to the town. They simply look at what is proper planning. The Route 40 committee would be someone that you'd certainly want to ask that question to, whether or not they believe, knowing that this grant is available, if that would affect, or they believe that would affect their ultimate decision.
So, so the planning board is basically saying that the proposal under these two articles is a viable zoning option for that area.
Yeah, what you'll see, and you'll see it later on with another zoning article that's here, is regarding rezoning IA to allow for multifamily by right as opposed to the current process of allowing it through the zoning board of appeals only. This kind of follows in tail with that. They consider this to be a good planning piece, and it wasn't a unanimous vote, but they consider this to be a good planning piece for that area. So because it follows what the intent of that location is. But they're very careful about, and they've made this position, and every chair that's come before us has said that they don't look to the cash value of planning. They don't plan for that type of thing. They simply plan for how that area is going to be zoned. If you have a question for there are members of the Route 40 committee here, if you have a question about how their position, if their position would be changed based upon this new information, you can certainly ask them. They're obviously not required to respond.
We have the chair, obviously, we have the chairman and another, this gentleman was the.
I was a member.
Yeah. So, did you want to answer that question?
I would appreciate it if you would come up, yeah, if you're comfortable doing so. And like I said, you're not required to.
So as anyone that watched the presentation saw, we did meet for 9 months. We looked at commercial as a viable option. after a lot of consideration, after a lot of people that we brought in from other aspects of the town, it wasn't just the committee, we brought in a lot of other people to give us input. It did not make sense to put commercial in this area, and that's why we increased the uses under IA and added some residential and an overlay to make it, give it plenty of opportunities to developers and people to utilize this area without putting in something that didn't make sense for that location.
Pam, can I ask why you felt the commercial didn't make sense?
That's a lot of, that's a lot of discussion. Mike, do you want to answer that?
Primarily, the Route 40 exit is all residential.
Okay.
You go commercial, when was the last time in this town we have taken single-family homes and put commercial in?
Mm-hmm.
Long time ago. And I think that was primarily the reason. And what we're trying to do is clean up the north side, because there is a direct zoning conflict right now between single-family and the IA, which is right behind. And knowing what they could do with IA, that's what we felt we could bring it down to the street level and clear that up. Is there gonna be a zoning conflict for a while? Yes. Could be for a number of years, but it would eventually clean it up.
Okay.
That
Thank
was
you.
our thought process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam.
Given our CIP percentage, I genuinely, and I've had this position, I think, repeatedly for the past 4 years I've been on this committee, I am concerned about the percentages of family and multifamily to and residential to CIP. And I think as a committee, we've consistently voted to, where possible, increase the CIP rather than decrease the CIP. I'm concerned with this, and I'll reiterate it later on when we address a couple of the other articles. I'm concerned with, again, making it easier for more multifamily. The market, sure, the market can trend a certain way, and what we have in place for that is the current planning, which would require zoning relief in instances where it doesn't currently meet the standards of that zoning in that area. However, I do understand the concerns about further delaying this. That has been going for 9 months.
So this one does not.
This changes the zoning from RC to IA. So what it does is it takes the strip of land on the north side of Route 40,
Right along the street.
about 200 feet back, is currently zoned RC, and there are currently residences on that, some of which are vacant, have been purchased by a developer. Behind that is IA, and there's a small section of land against Route 3, which is currently not zoned at all. This plan, this zoning article, would, if supported and implemented, change the entire north half of that section of land into zoned IA, and would allow everything that's allowed in IA. That's all this does.
Okay, can I see the slide for IA? I can't read it, mine is too small.
The slide for IA.
Like, all the stuff that's.
That's 23.
So-
I think she wants to see the map that shows.
That's 24, yeah. So yeah, I guess we can look at, it's 24 because it kind of flows into. So what you're seeing is the rezoned area.
The blue.
The blue, the north half of Route 40 on the town line. Currently, if you look at that red line, and it's very hard to see from here, I know.
Yeah.
The red line above Route 40, or above Groton Road. If you go back from the road, that section, that sliver along the road is currently zoned RC. And then you see a lighter box next to Route 3, a little further north.
Yep.
That is currently unzoned. What this does, what this article would do, Article 23, is rezone this all IA.
22.
22, yeah, sorry, 22.
22, yeah.
No, It's not a touchscreen.
Oh.
Touching it's not gonna do anything.
Go to the other side. That's it, no. Keep going up,
What are you looking for?
down.
It's not a touchscreen. Stop touching my screen. I think I'm talking to Ava.
I think it's a reasonable.
That's 23. So those would be commercial that would be allowed if, and this is 23, this is not 22. So that's this overlay district.
Okay,
Yeah, okay. So right now, all we're dealing with is
22.
RC versus IA.
Right.
Any further discussion? We'll look at 10 more. I'm conflicted, honestly. Because my concern, it still remains my concern. I am very pro increasing our CIP percentage. And what this does is it flows into the next article with the overlay district,
Right.
which would allow some commercial. However, we know that the market is providing and targeting Chelmsford for multifamily.
Yeah.
And it's a concern. I have a concern about
But
it.
a lot of it going up.
It's a lot of it going up, yep, and this would make it easier for that to happen. And yes, the target with the next article is to make it a age-friendly community area, that it's designed to do that. Doesn't mean it's gonna do it.
Right. There's no guarantee.
There's no guarantee. It just makes the path easier if a developer wants to put a regular multifamily.
So, if we do this, multifamily is allowed,
Yep.
If we do the next.
Up to
one.
5 floors.
up to 5 floors.
So,
It's currently 4 floors, to be clear.
so
It increases the story it's not 4?
One of the overlays goes up to 5. Currently, by right, IA can do 5 levels.
IA
Not
can.
do residential.
It cannot do residential.
No, it cannot.
Yeah, okay.
So if that vote does not do residential in this piece, in an overlay it does, it's
Mhm.
allowed in that. And then we also increased it to go to 5 stories, 200 feet back.
So it's 24 will, Article 23 will be with the overlay in providing for that additional multifamily. So IA does not currently allow, well, there's not, I think we're mixing all these, we have a bunch of articles coming for us, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So there's an article to make it, the article later on that would allow for multifamily by right in IA. That's
Okay,
further on
This
down
does
the.
not allow multifamily. What does this allow?
This does not currently, well, the intent is if everything's passed as it's currently presented, it would, because then the IA would then allow in all districts multifamily to go in. This, with the overlay, if the overlay is allowed, it would allow, well, I hate to jump ahead because we're jumping into another article here, but
But they are sort of daisy
if I
chained
could
together.
just interject something here.
Mhm.
I want to kind of circle back, that there is a certain amount of ambiguity here, and,
ambiguity.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so if you just thought, I can understand it's like sometimes just make the decision, rip off the Band-Aid and go with it, why wait for this committee or whatever, but we kind of have a gift of the $62,000. And I really like the idea that it's going to, the 62 is going to view all the interchanges and that we would have a consistent thing. I would like, I want the people in the individual neighborhoods to have a say and a perspective, but I would like that we have a long-term consistent plan, which if we wait and we get the more information from the study, I think we'll have a clearer picture, so it won't be so difficult to make a decision, yay or nay, this is good for the town, this is bad for the town. And so I just really think that it's, I would wait. That's how I'm thinking, because you have lots of benefits of getting the additional information, and you have more risk with not having the information and the potential of having to go through a rezoning.
Does this rezoning
Okay, so what this does, now, I've gone through 23, and I think it's 27. So 22 is simply going to change, I think, to start out saying this, we went down a rabbit hole. 22, all it does is change that sliver of RC to IA, and it rezones that square, that rectangle next to Route 3 to IA. So it allows, everything's allowed in IA, not multifamily, currently. So it would bring the industrial by rights to the road, and would change the zoning of that strip of land. And do we know currently how many are occupied residents? And it was like 10, you said?
Total.
That was a total?
I don't know how many are occupied or unoccupied, to Anne's comment earlier, but there is, yeah, there's 10 properties.
They're in the RC.
In the RC?
Yeah, the current RC, on the north side. I'm not talking about the south side. Only the section that would be rezoned. 10? So here's kind of my position, and the way I'm kind of looking at this, I think I'm gonna be dead set against the adjustment of the IA by right multifamily. That's later on. Yep. I'm not gonna discuss that right now. I think I'm gonna vote in favor of the IA up to the north side of Route 40. It does do a change. However, in looking at 23, and we'll discuss this next, I am not. Oh, I think I am in favor as that well, but we're going to talk about that next. Because my main concern is with that further on article. But for development purposes, I think I'm okay with the change in IA from an economic standpoint.
Can I also clarify the 5-story discussion that took place at both public sessions as well? I think you said, right?
Public sessions of?
When they held the hearings in the residents.
At the planning boards and in the subcommittee meetings?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was a discussion, that was.
And, yes.
Okay, I guess to clarify, or maybe if someone, Paul or Evan knows, I mean, your comment that if we wait and do a study, we'll have consistency. I don't think that's true. You could look at 3 different interchanges, and they could all come back with different recommendations for what to put there.
No, but I'm saying that you would have an overall perspective of the various intersections, so that you would have a long view, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I heard consistency, so they'd all be the same.
Right. I just want to be clear, when we applied for the grant, this wasn't about the Route 40 committee.
Right.
This was part of the master plan update.
Right.
And the idea was the town was doing a 10-year update of its master plan. And we felt this would be a complement to that by examining all the intersections on Route 3 to get a comprehensive town-wide plan on how the town should proceed with proper zoning on the interchanges, which, as we noted earlier, is where the economic development is happening in today's society.
Yep.
Across the region, across the state. That's what this is about. I don't
Yeah.
know. And honestly, we had no idea when this was gonna be awarded. I mean,
Right.
it almost seems like pretend that we come in at the 11th hour and just drop something on people. I didn't know until, like I said, 2 days ago that the words were coming out, and all of a sudden this thing came in, and as I said, I still don't have documentation. I found it on a press release on the governor's website today about this, so that's where this is coming from. What this article does, as you noted earlier, is this is creating a situation similar to what you have on Chelmsford Street, where you have one side of the road being commercial or industrial, and the other side being residential. And we've seen the conflicts there. I think the reason why the town may have kept that up in the front for where it is now for RC was to avoid that impact on the other side of the roadway, which is because as we all live what's happened on Chelmsford Street with the daycare and everything else. And I think that sort of, from my perspective, is sort of interesting in seeing what's happening here. because all the talk is on the north side, but there's very little discussion tonight and in recent weeks about the south side, which.
And how they're affected by this.
affected by this.
No, that is a fair statement.
Dwellings up by the road on the south side.
However, I believe there was at least one individual that came that was on the south side that said he had no problem with this being done. He actually liked the position during public comment. So I understand that concern. I'm just not sure how.
I guess my thought of what you're considering now, what Paul said, is if you're looking at IA, which is a lighter type development, EDC wants to put large development there, isn't that gonna be more of a zoning conflict for the residents than what we're proposing, which is gonna fit in the community a little bit better?
If I can clarify, Jim, I'm sorry, but I don't think the EDC ever said we want a large commercial development there. I think we want to keep it open for a third-party independent look at that area and give us the town time. As Paul's noted and Kathy's noted, we have 3 or 4 interchanges there, that there should be some consistency throughout town, not just zoned for one small section of town, but for all of Chelmsford. So to say that the EDC wants to put a mega big box store there is not accurate. That's not accurate. But there are other zoning opportunities other than IA that can run on the north side. You can have a neighborhood commercial. You can do many different things, not just on the north side, but also on the south side. You know, to split the road like that, in an area where you already have an interchange, and you have an asphalt plant, and you have people whose quality of life is already compromised, and they want to leave the area. They're not leaving because of the developer.
I love living there.
I'm not talking about you, but there are people noted already, and they have signs in front of their yard. They're leaving, not because a developer came in and is paying them a premium. They're leaving because their quality of life has been truly compromised between truck traffic and this idea of the asphalt plant coming online.
Do we know, Paul, when it's expected to go online?
The best information.
I know it's in Westford, and I understand, yeah.
I hate this thing about not talking on a microphone.
No, I appreciate it, thank you.
The best information that we've been informed through the inquiries we've made, because we're also trying to address some other issues in that area. The best information that we have is that the asphalt plant is expected to be completed this fall with trial tests, but it will not be operational till the 2020 construction season.
Okay.
So
So
basically. Soon, but it won't be till next spring.
I think during the meeting last week, it was brought up about air testing. Are we doing anything to get a baseline?
No, and the reason is the asphalt plants like the one on Littleton Road are regulated by the State Department of Environmental Protection, as well as they're under federal guidelines as well. The state is a responsible party. Yes, we have the local Board of Health, but to my understanding, I'm not aware of the Board of Health doing any baseline testing out there. Again, with the issues with the asphalt plant tend to be more smell because of the air emissions issue than they tend to be in terms of air quality. And those issues, again, are regulated by DEP, and we've seen DEP act on the other facilities.
So if the residents wanted something like that, who would they contact to?
They contact
DEP.
DEP. They do air quality testing. To my knowledge, the town of Chelmsford Board of Health nor other local boards of health are in the air quality testing procedure.
So there is a mechanism for them to
That's
do
DEP.
as a.
Yeah, and again, it's really the emissions tests and standards that are in place for asphalt plants.
So if we delay, it just brings it online. The plant's gonna be online at that point. If we were not to vote against this and then ultimately we defeated at town meeting, nothing changes, and an asphalt plant goes online.
The asphalt plant's
That's gonna
gonna
go
go on.
That's going online no matter what,
Right.
yeah.
This developer, what,
I don't, we can't bank on a developer.
no, I'm not, I
Yeah.
don't, I'm just, what was, what did they want to build up? What were they, why
We're,
they?
we're gonna talk about what they're providing in the next article.
Okay, can I ask,
If we
would
ever
this
get-
zoning prevent the developer?
No, this will
one?
make it easier for a
For
developer.
this developer that's buying up all the land?
That's my understanding.
We don't know what they're proposing.
But we don't know exactly what they're
Okay, all
proposing.
right, okay, that's,
It wouldn't be detrimental.
this zoning would not be,
The change.
Developer, I think you were fine, it wouldn't be. what would
The
be-
change would not be detrimental.
They couldn't build residential.
But they couldn't build,
Changing the zoning to IA. Because we're told that the development.
well,
We're understanding that the development tends to build residential on the south side of Groton Road because of the lack of any zoning change. So you're saying, could the developer do this? The developer could still have the right today to put residential on the north side, under the RC. What we're hearing is duplexes, I'll tell you what we're hearing, duplexes on the south side of Groton Road.
mhm.
and,
And therefore, that would be
This
allowed
would
on the
prevent
north
that.
side under the RC areas just as well.
Yeah, currently it would be allowed, yeah.
Right, exactly, so you are making a change. Again, I'm not saying what's right or wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying what we're
Yeah.
hearing.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Okay.
There are 2 nays?
one.
1 nay?
Yeah, no, one day.
1 nay, okay. 6-1. Next article is Article 23, zoning bylaw amendment, continuing care community overlay district.
Okay, Article 23. As presented.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. So what this does is kind of what we kept butting up against as we were discussing the previous article. It provides this overlay district. It's a different overlay district than we have obviously on 129, but what this does is kind of gear towards and make it more easy to provide.
Is the IA more resident-friendly?
Well, not necessarily resident-friendly, but it would allow for these changes that promote 55-plus housing with
Right.
certain restrictions, including by right, attached, detached, independent senior living facilities with a density up to 20 units per acre, adult daycare facilities, nursing convalescent facilities, restaurants no larger than 3,000 square feet, no drive-throughs, medical offices and medical centers, and by special permit, it would allow personal care services such as barbers, salons, dry cleaners, financial services, pharmacies and banks, where drive-throughs would be permitted, retail stores and services, parking garages. It would also require a reduction of the residential unit size in dwellings limited to 55 and over occupancy, below the limits established for current residential uses. So it'd be smaller units, with the idea that this is targeted towards senior living and senior housing. I would go into floor area ratio and everything like that. So a lot of this is just basically what is provided in that area and the building heights that would be provided in that area. Certainly.
The continuing care.
Yes, please. And the reason why is because the mics don't pick you up at home, and so when people watch it in the future or now, they can't hear you.
Continuing care is for a lot of people that maybe have head injuries, early Alzheimer's, maybe Down syndrome, people that can't live in homes on their own and they need continuing care throughout their lifetime. So it's not only over 55, and there's a lot of need for facilities where people are in some type of a handicap situation, paralysis, that are young and that need housing, and we don't have that in Chelmsford. So that was part of what we were envisioning might be able to go into this, along with senior living, continuing care, not depending on age, and then supporting facilities and retail or businesses or services that could make it easy for these people to live a normal lifestyle.
But they would not be limited to the people that are living there. They would certainly be open to the public, yeah. So those are those specific residential uses that would normally be provided for in IA. It's kind of what we were flowing into when we were discussing this.
Yeah.
And there's a further article which discusses all the IA in Chelmsford and multifamily. We'll discuss that in a further article. So this is an overlay district that is targeting a specific ask, a specific need. It would now be the only way that, unless grandfathered, you would be able to have that residential component in that zoning area.
Or commercial for that matter, right?
Or commercial for that matter, yeah.
But I like this commercial in that area.
I agree.
I think this commercial works in that area. I'm concerned about general opening the floodgates for all commercial. And I'm not saying that's what this study would say.
Well, this specifically provides for by right, the ones I listed, and then by special permit, the others.
But my concern, excuse me, is to your point, and maybe it's in the next article, but I just don't want there to be any loopholes where then we get more multifamily, I don't know, that's my biggest fear. Is there some sort of loophole and this doesn't come in and something else comes through?
Well, okay, so because it's an overlay district, in IA, you cannot have the residential component.
Yeah.
This allows for this specific by right component where it's the continuing care, as the Route 40 chair stated, and that's been stated by the planning board previously. It would allow for both the continuing care, but also the plus 55 community residential, but would not allow that multifamily under this specific overlay district. But it would be the only way in which you'd be able to provide residential would be through this overlay.
So if,
And commercial, for that matter.
so really, for that specific area, that's gonna be the only thing that'd be able to be in there is the senior living arrangements?
No, anything that's currently allowed under IA would be allowed to be there. So all those
Okay.
buildings and stuff up to, I think it's 4 or 5 floors currently. Those would still be allowed in there, and because it's IA, an IA district. Under this, they would also provide. No, so it would. So within the overlay district, the permitted by right would be, again, A, attached and detached independent senior living facilities, as they're up there. A nursing convalescent facility. Restaurants, you gotta look at them separately. They're not mutually exclusive. So you have to look at it and say restaurants no larger than 3,000 square feet, medical offices and medical centers, and then special permits would allow these others, which would be the personal care services, pharmacy and banks, retail stores and services, parking garages, that are meant to support the purpose of the CCOD. But it's a special permit, so it goes before the planning board to determine whether or not it would be something that would be allowed in that area. So you could have a situation where, the continuing care facility, the 55 plus residential doesn't go in, and you still have, by right, these restaurants that are less than 3,000 square feet, or those other by right facilities, or by special permit the other ones.
Right.
It's just. They're trying to tailor and narrow but allow these things that would normally not be allowed in an IA. And so it's targeted planning on that overlay district. much like the CEIOD that was placed. A different purpose, but the same type of goal is to say, we want this type of thing to go in here, and we're making it easier for this type of thing to go in here. It doesn't mean you're required to, or that's even going to lead to that. But we're saying this is what our vision is for this area, and we're making it easier for that vision to become if you so choose.
So to me, this one is more straightforward. If you're for
IA, then you're for this.
Then
It doesn't make sense to rezone that to the top of Route 4, to the top of Route 40, and not do this. 'Cause then all you've done is taken away the RC.
Yep.
It's just kind of fruitless. Any further discussion? Any questions or anything like that? Nope. Kathy?
When we come to the vote, I'm gonna abstain because, to be consistent, I should vote no on both things, but I'm gonna abstain from this because I think, they're kind of,
Feels good?
well, yeah, because they're kind of commingled, so.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
I said, I'm not against the proposal, it's just that I.
Like 22A, 22B, yeah, I get that.
So, I did have a question here. So, on these type of things, like say you had an Alzheimer's facility, what type of tax implication, I mean, that's like new growth, I mean, is that taxed? Do they get any special tax break because they're in this category? I mean, is that considered a business?
Depends upon the nature of the ownership.
Yeah.
Nonprofit, correct, institutional, then there may be no tax benefit.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if it's
so,
not
I mean,
nonprofit, it could be medical, it could be a for-profit institution.
So that.
Do we know what the facility on Technology Drive is? Is that commercial or considered nonprofit?
That's a good question. I believe that's commercial.
That's commercial? Okay, so if something like that on the corner of Technology went up at Route 40,
Yeah.
like the Alzheimer's facility there, then that would be commercial, it'd be contributed to the CIP. Doesn't mean it has to be something like that, but it would, yeah.
So you could possibly have development there that would end up not having tax benefit to the town.
True, but you currently have stuff that's not benefiting the.
Right, no, I'm just saying that
now.
that's an implication of this too. is
True.
that
Yep.
it's a little bit less opportunity.
If a nonprofit were to purchase that is a possibility.
But, I mean, it's kind of like when.
Yeah, I don't know why
They
that'd
can
be
probably do that
different.
anyway, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yep. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Nays or
Abstain.
abstention? Six yes, no, one abstention. That's only 10:26.
We're at 24, right?
Right.
Make a motion that we accept Article 24 as presented.
So Article 24 is a zoning bylaw amendment to amend the CEIOD to allow multifamily in industrial areas. This is the article I was referencing. I'm against this.
I'm against this too.
I am so against this.
Yes. This one I am against. I'm okay with the overlay district in the previous one because it's specific to that location. We allowed them, in the discussions when we were rezoning the CIOD, we allowed the multifamily to go in because we were told it's going to be work, live, play model. Currently, all we have is live.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Lots of it.
And that's what the market's targeting for that area, and that's what we're getting. I don't.
Well, also, there's one of the specific locations they were talking about was Technology Drive at the end towards,
Yep.
like.
Which is already, there is already a bunch of multifamily
Here's
there,
the
or
whole thing, like in
55 plus, yeah.
Bricklin Road.
Brick kiln, yeah.
I'm on it every day, I think I know it by now. Yes, it's industrialized, but there are plenty like, it goes right into neighborhoods, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
it's, like, it's too much. And it ends up, those people who live there, who have nice homes, bringing down their values. It's just,
I'm just more concerned about increasing our residential and decreasing our
multifamily
CIP.
yeah,
You know, I just feel like there's just.
We're currently above the
so much
threshold
of it.
for 40B.
we're done.
I mean, well, we're not done.
Well,
We're
done for a
currently
little
above the threshold.
Yeah.
It's
But
a
there's still
changing target.
There's still buildings being built. It's not
Yeah.
like, it's not like all the multifamilies have been built, and it's been a few years, and we've figured out how to absorb it. Like, there's a lot already. I think it's time to just take a breather.
Yes.
So the definition of multifamily, like in my mind, I still see like a triple decker or a two-family house. What they're really talking about multifamily is these 5-story buildings.
That's what seems to be going up a
I mean-
lot
I mean-
across.
I mean,
That's what the
multifamily,
market's
it
providing.
could mean a triple decker,
But I'm
but
just-
that's not what's happening. What's happening is you're getting apartment complexes.
Right, so that's within the definition of a
Yeah.
multifamily.
Yes.
Condos and
Yeah,
stuff like
okay,
that, yeah.
so-
Yeah, I mean, and they're going up, not just in, like, in our town, across the entire state. I mean,
Because there's a housing shortage, and that's what the market's indicating.
Can't go out, 'cause
And
there's not enough
therefore,
property, so you go up.
so you go out further into the suburbs, they build more multifamily, and people move in, and the problem is, we use up area which could be, and again, the market's not providing for it currently, but if we change it, the multifamily goes in, and good luck
Trying to get-
getting that land back.
Yeah.
We've tried multiple times to try to trend toward this, which was the whole reason why we supported adamantly the CIOD, was the idea that we're bringing in the commercial and amenities, and we're allowing for that to happen. It's not happening like we'd like it to. There is movement, but there are also setbacks every now and then. And it's because you can't control the business that wants to go or does not want to go. You can just provide for the ability for that to happen. But I don't want to make it easier on this specifically. I don't think for economically for the town, I think it trends away from what we, at least as the finance committee, have been trying to trend towards.
Exactly.
Is more, it's an increase in the CIP ratio. Any further discussion? Nope. Seeing none. So do we want to,
Change.
we can either change the vote, or we can simply vote nay.
It's the same result, correct?
It's the same result, yeah.
So let's just.
Yeah, all those in favor? All those opposed?
Nay.
No abstentions, 7-0 against. Article 25, zoning bylaw amendment, pre-existing non-conforming residential lots.
I make a motion that we accept Article 25, the zoning bylaw amendment as presented.
I'll second.
Getting good at that.
Very good.
It's a small print.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this one.
So, I didn't, because this came up before, right?
No,
No?
no, you're thinking of the historic preservation one.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Hold on, never mind. Sorry.
Yep, no. This is simply cleaning it up, so there'll be less, because what we're seeing is there are a lot of things have to go before the zoning board,
This
because,
is just, it makes, I think it makes the
It makes the
wording
process-
of the rules a little clearer.
well, not only
And
that, but
incorporates
it would,
Buildings that aren't incorporated.
what would do is decrease the burden on the ZBA, quite frankly, because what they're doing is they're finding that they're granting zoning relief because there's a lot of land that
Yeah.
fits with this, and so it would decrease.
It would decrease, and also, I think decrease the burden a bit on the homeowners that just want to
Yep.
improve their properties.
Mhm.
That
They wouldn't have to go through the process with the zoning board of
99%
appeals,
of new
yeah.
projects have to go through the zoning, I mean,
But
that's crazy.
I know, but my only concern about something like this is when you have a house and you want to build an addition,
Yeah.
right? If you have to go to the zoning board to get approval, you think about, you may talk to your neighbor.
Well, you still have to go get a permit.
Yeah, it doesn't completely, no.
You still have
This
to-
doesn't allow you to go to a contractor and say, hey, just build this for me.
But I'm just
You still have to
afraid
go through
we're
the
gonna
process.
get to.
But see, it doesn't get rid of the rules. What it does is it goes to the rules that were in effect at the date that the building was built.
Right, so you're not having to get like, it's almost like a grandfather clause, in a way.
Effectively.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just not, opposed to something, like, if, go in front of the zoning board, present the case, have them approve it. If it I think it just kind of gives you that.
I'm all for efficiencies, and this is,
This is kind of a win-win. It seems like it helps the residents and it helps the zoning board.
Yeah. And I don't think
Will
it's
there be
doing
a couple of
anything negative
cases
to
where
the
there'll be
community.
someone that will say, oh, well, maybe it wouldn't have gone through had it
Right.
not been changed?
But
Yes,
the thing
that's
that
not
I
gonna
do like though
prevent
is that the houses that are really old are still gonna, we're not going back that far. I think the houses that are pre-1928 or something.
38.
38 are gonna be held to the standard of the houses from 38 to 54 or something, you know what I mean?
That was my understanding. I
Yeah,
think they
because that's the
understated
question I
that.
asked, yeah, and I like that.
Zoning Board of Appeals, I think, twice this year, for something totally different. And each time I was there, there was an issue with a non-conforming lot and a developer trying to, overbuild on it and neighbors complaining about it. And I'm just afraid.
Yeah, but were those granted?
They were not.
Yeah, but it was a developer, I think that's a little.
Or it was someone who bought the property, wanted to build, one of them was,
So if, but,
wanted to build
but,
3 houses on a piece of land.
So the
And
changes-
The neighborhood was fine with 2, splitting the lot, and that would have worked, but they needed, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
but
just,
three to
that's,
get
I
the
just kinda
rate,
like this
yeah.
little,
But-
after, and again, I've only gone twice.
but keep in mind, it's not getting rid of zoning rules. All it's doing is changing the front side and rear setbacks to the date in which the building was built.
It's not everything, it's not like
It's
saying.
not
saying
everything.
that- It's not like saying that you can now
I
have
just
lead in
don't
your
want,
house
like,
if it was built,
again,
like,
and I wasn't there for this, I was there for something totally different, and I
It's just,
listened
it's
to this
it's
poor
just the
neighborhood.
frontage, side and rear things, that's all it is.
Right, but so I sit there and I question whether this.
From a purely financial and economic standpoint, I think that this is a good decision. I think it's.
I agree.
It decreases the burden on the property owner, it decreases the burden on the zoning board of appeals. It makes the process more efficient, and it more mirrors the current outcome of the current zoning and the zoning decisions from the ZBA. I don't see why we shouldn't support this. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Me.
6-1. Bear with me 1 second. Article 26, zoning bylaw amendment, minor updates to the cluster open space.
I'll make a motion that we accept Article 26, the zoning bylaw amendment for minor updates to cluster open space as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
Based on the presentation, what I've read, this seems like a very good option.
It simply provides a mechanism to provide a smaller portion of land over in a cluster to, it just makes sense. It's what it's what they're seeing, and it provides the vehicle to do it.
Yeah, I want to follow this one.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0. Article 27 is
Article,
zoning bylaw amendment for historic preservation and reuse. This is the one
This is the one
from
you were
last
talking
year.
about.
Yeah.
okay, I'd like to make an amendment that we accept Article 27, the zone.
Motion.
Motion.
Please don't amend.
Excuse me. Mind is a terrible thing to waste. Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we accept Article 27, the zoning bylaw amendment, historic preservation and reuse, as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Anita? Is this the one you were talking about?
Well, I like the fact that the plan board, and specifically, this is Nan's article, this is kind of her baby. I like the fact that she listened to what the concerns were at town meeting last year. She addressed those concerns, and one of the major concerns was the accessory dwellings. Accessory dwellings, you could add additional units into it if you had the ability to do so. This simply removed that portion, because that was a concern, and it brings it down to, I believe, 8 brings it down to how many units per? I'm not finding it. There's a lot of language.
Adequate living area for 3 dwelling units,
Yep,
right there on the screen.
thank you. It's all the way at the end. So the goal is it to provide another vehicle for, or incentive rather, to, instead of tear down and rebuild on the lot, to restore these historical buildings, or provide for housing in those historical buildings that wouldn't normally be allowed in that area, in order, with the understanding in 30-year, I believe the 30-year restricted covenant on the property, to prevent the character of the building from being changed.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I think about driving, when I drive down to the Meslow on Chelmsford Street, you have all those beautiful homes that were converted.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like, I like to have some of these historic, I like to have the ability for someone to buy it and keep it family, like a, you know, a
Not many
one-family.
people can afford that, though.
Well, no, of course, I mean,
Well,
there's
so
the
no,
opportunity,
but
there
what
are-
this would do here, Anita, the problem is, what the person here could do is just buy the place and tear it down and build something modern.
So
This is saying, if
it.
you keep it in the historical configuration, but make it into 2 to 3 family housing, and put a restricted covenant on it for 30 years, then
Then
you're
it's
allowed to do this. You
And
convert
again,
this on
there-
something that wouldn't
there-
normally be allowed in that lot.
There are builders in town that have taken, and I've seen them, you know, they've done a wonderful job in turning them into nice, you know, 2, 3 families. But I just think that,
So if not, so if nothing's done, if we don't vote in support of this, what would happen is you wouldn't have that incentive given to keep the historical nature of that building, and the builder could simply buy it and tear down.
tear it down and build a 5,000 square foot house, that would increase the neighborhood value.
Yeah, but
I
you
don't
just said
know.
that you like the old houses.
I do, but
I'm very
also like-
confused by your
Yeah.
comment.
But again, if, you know, if they're buying, you know, an older house,
I mean, if they're buying it and they're keeping it, and
If it's a
based on
nice
this, they're
house.
gonna have to keep the aesthetic, the historical aesthetic
Yeah.
of the house versus the homes in the 1990s that were, or even, shoot, the 1930s and 40s that were split up. They were done very poorly. They were done in haste and, you know, and they were just sort of slapped together and they didn't, there was nothing looking at the historical aesthetic of the home from the outside. Based on how I'm reading this, if somebody comes in and buys a really nice old Victorian from the street, other than the ability to get out of the home from the 3rd floor, from the street, you shouldn't be able to necessarily tell that it's a 3-family.
okay, but I guess my point is, you know.
Yeah, you can't put parking on the front lot, you can't put parking.
Right, no, yeah, it's-
There are a lot of conditions and restrictions
Yeah, it's
that are
gonna,
being
to me,
provided
it's
by
gonna make
this.
these houses look nice and serve a purpose, a needed
Maintain
purpose.
them, right.
And maintain them, yeah.
Retain, maintain.
Yes, Paul?
I'm not getting really.
I don't know, a lot of picture's worth 1,000 words.
So the pictures in her presentation look
Yeah.
nice, too. She
Yeah.
showed particular properties.
I mean, you know, there's some, you know, developers I've seen that have done that and did a wonderful job. I'm just,
So what is your concern?
Those are ones we lost.
That's why I'm trying to understand your
I don't
concern.
know, I guess, I don't want to necessarily encourage turning them into 3-family, you know, homes. I like the lot to be
Torn,
developed.
you want it to be torn down,
You know, I
You would
mean,
rather it be developed than have the.
and have that kept.
well, you know.
I just want to make sure, and that's fine, that may be what you're
As-
saying, I just want to make sure I
yeah.
understand what you're saying.
Maybe, yeah. I'd rather it be
So instead of-
a tear down and a new,
As a for instance, so instead of the Dutton house being kept with that aesthetic and being turned into 2 to 3 family based upon the square footage and the ability to put parking and everything like that,
yeah.
and the restrictive covenant being put on the property, which is, again, it's only for 30 years,
You'd be okay with it
you would be
being
okay with
torn
that being torn down and built into something that is much more modern.
Not
You- you
modern.
pre- you would
but
prefer
nicer,
that.
Like a McMansion. Yeah.
But you can't control that.
I can't, but
So
I
the
can't
size-
control who goes into like how this will be as a 3-family developed either.
But you can,
Yes, you
yes,
would.
this thing is very controlling. It's very specific as what they can do, plus it's got the 30-year covenant thing, so
Restricted covenant, yeah.
I thought Anita's concern was the fact, from her earlier concern.
That's what I thought too.
Was the idea of splitting extra house lots, now
Right.
you've got another dwelling there and increased density.
No, I want to tear down
That's
and
what
then,
you're concerned about, what you described earlier about the variances and such that you were describing in your previous discussion about the idea of infill. I thought that's where you were going, Anita, but apparently.
I thought so too, which I was trying to figure out. Now I don't understand.
So this, maybe not word for word, but the only real change from last year was the removal of the accessory dwelling.
Yes.
Effective, there are other
Pretty much.
minor changes, but yes,
So
effectively.
last year we voted 7-0 for it.
Yes.
it's been a year and I've changed my mind. My
Now you want McMansions.
That's good. Now I want a McMansion.
We ain't never going home.
She's changed her mind.
Second bullet, they're gonna split the lots and build a new house behind it.
No, I want,
That's what that says.
okay, then that's all the more reason why I vote against it, because I don't want to split the lots. Thank you. All the more reason.
It does allow for a second lot behind it.
Thank you. All right.
But there are
But they have
restrictions
to be-
regarding
Yeah,
that.
it's still,
Aren't you a troublemaker?
Take his name down. Oh.
I was okay with this last year.
Entirely
I-
to you.
And I was okay with the additional language regarding the accessory dwelling.
I love historic preservation.
Take a vote. We take a vote?
This was, do you remember the vote at town meeting?
No.
No.
I
I
don't
think it
have-
went down pretty quickly at town meeting because it was as my recollection was that there
I
was so
meant
much
to-
discussion about
Yeah.
the extra building.
That was the main
the
bugaboo
like
on
the-
it, yeah.
Because I think it was worded like, I want to say side house or something. There was an interesting wording to the extra building that you were going to be adding. I can't remember how it was described, but
It was like an
that was the top, that
outbuilding
was
or
the
something.
focus of.
Is this a new slide?
This is the one that, this is the one that was provided by Nan. And then the new slide was this one, which was the one that talked about the changes. This is the one you asked her to produce.
Okay, this is one I have not seen.
Accessory structures is
Yeah.
the term that people were going on and on about.
Okay, so, all right. Change it instead of 75
ADU
years.
project requires stores and anything that's prior plan. Okay, I'm sorry, Paul, can you go back to the other one? Because I don't remember seeing the other one either. Thank you. This is not currently in the warrant article presentation. It's being added into it. This,
Yeah, it's part
yeah.
of the it's not in the
It's part of her presentation, yeah, okay, yeah. Do we remember how many lots Nan said would actually meet these requirements?
It's back, it's on one of the slides.
RARPR.
No, it's
No,
on this.
Wasn't it on the slide you just
The one
on?
just had, the RARPRC.
Right there.
Thought it was 100 and.
No, the-
It's like 108.
108.
Yeah. $625, potential three-family versions, 100.
Potential two families are 625.
625.
And existing ones are 270.
They're currently, I know where, there's some near me. Gotta love voting night. None of you guys wanted to sleep, did you? No.
I took tomorrow off.
There you go, good for you. I did
I'd
not.
like to sleep. Listen, I can't get sick. I have a wedding in a week.
You're gonna get sick now.
No, I
I don't know. I voted in favor of this and the change that was made was one that was of concern to the people on the floor of town meeting. So I don't think I'm changing my vote.
I'm not
I
either.
don't think I'm gonna change mine.
No.
I'm good with it because I'd like to see as many of the properties preserved or maintained, and also you want to give people the opportunity to utilize the land.
And keep in mind, it's only a 30-year restrictive covenant.
Right.
Just want to make sure that's clear. So it preserved, but only a 30-year requirement. Then it could be changed.
So 30
after.
years from now, they could do something different?
Yep.
Yeah, but then they've already
Okay,
made
well.
it into a multifamily, so.
We probably won't be here.
I won't be here, so.
Oh, crying out loud.
She's getting punchy.
Right, exactly, the plastic bags might be,
All right.
All right, I'm gonna call the vote.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? 6-1 in favor.
Okay, Article 28, I'd make a motion that we accept Article 28, the zoning bylaw amendment to eliminate the sign advisory committee.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
She's like, no. You're not allowed to.
Article 29, zoning bylaw amendment of rear lots.
No action?
No action.
Great.
Oh, that's right, that was taken off.
I'll make a motion.
Article 30, real estate, sorry.
That's right. I'll make a motion that we accept Article 30, real estate tax exemption for parents and guardians of deceased active service members.
Second.
Discussion?
Right thing to do.
Yeah, I think this one's a no-brainer.
Doesn't mean that much.
This is probably the one I've given the most thought to in the 2 years I've been doing this.
Yeah?
I'm a 6-year Marine Corps veteran, and I don't know how to feel comfortable about this.
Really? May I ask why?
You may.
I'm not gonna get an answer.
So I was happy and pleased to learn that there's already an exemption for spouses.
Right, as there should be.
You know, you lost part of the family income. I'm thinking of,
It's a way to keep your home.
a mid-30-year-old serviceman who dies, his parents, I'm just not making the connection of why the parents need
I think for me,
relief at that point.
and one of the reasons I had asked the question when it came up was, for me, it was sort of, I was trying to understand, are these parents and guardians of non-married? Like, so it's one thing, because sometimes these service members are helping support their families.
Yeah, I don't think that was the,
You
I
know,
don't-
but that's not what
No.
gathered from it, that it's for any parent or guardian, even if the active duty service member who passed away is married.
yeah, so I don't know, and it's not even it's not even the money, it's just that it feels
Here's the thing though,
weird
right?
to me.
Like, as our parents get older, like, it's the kids are taking care of the parents. Now these parents don't have their kid to take care of them, right? Like, I don't know, I think it's the least
It's currently two properties.
Given all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Well, currently,
But yeah, I think given the,
That's why I said currently.
yeah.
I mean, I doubt we're gonna pass.
Let's adding
this.
emphasis on
People
syllable.
are gonna move
for the
in.
spouse, you're losing
Now
the
that
household.
will
You're also
exponentially
losing the-
grow.
Think about it from that perspective.
There are far too many people talking at once. Can one person please talk at once?
As a family, you're always there to help your parents.
So I think everybody else was
Guys,
universally.
guys, hold on, order.
They can't afford
Anita,
medication, what?
one person talking at a time, please. I realize it's late, but we'll never get out of here if we all talk over each other.
It seemed pretty clear that everybody else was a no-brainer for this, so I'm not gonna hold it up, but, I think I'm going to abstain from voting on it.
I respect your opinion.
That's certainly fair. I understand the concern, but I don't think it has a huge impact financially on the town, for sure.
No.
It's an adoption of it's adoption of a current state law. I'm okay with it. And I think it's recognizing the fact that a lot of younger people are taking care of their parents in the later years. A lot of age in place. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. No nays, abstention?
Yes, sir.
All right. You don't have to call me sir.
It's Marine.
I know, that's what I was gonna say, yeah. Abstention. Okay, Article 31, waive dog license fee for a dog owned by a person aged 70 or older.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Article 31, that the town accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 139, Paragraph C, to waive the fee for a license for a dog that is owned by a person aged 70 or older.
Second.
Discussion?
If you have a condo complex that has a bylaw that says you have to have a license for your dog, and the town...
You still get the license, no fee. It's just free. It's waiving the fee.
Yeah. You're still, every dog is still required to receive a license because they have to track the dogs, especially for instances in which there's an
Rabies
accident
and
with the
everything.
dog, rabies vaccination, stuff like that.
You don't
What
have
it
to pay
simply
for
does
it.
is waive the fee to do
$15
it.
to $20, yeah.
So, yeah, I should probably know this since I have two dogs. Either 15 per dog, maybe it's 10 if it's
No,
spayed or
it's,
neutered.
no, it's 15 if they're spayed or neutered, and
Yeah.
then it's like more if they're not, I think.
20.
So,
20, yeah.
again, I'm a pet owner. To me, if you're going to have a dog, it's expensive. You can afford $15 for a license.
I have to say, I understand that people aren't fixing, talking about if you can afford to feed the dog, take it to the vet, you can afford the pleasure of paying the $15 fee, regardless of how old you are.
The pleasure of paying the fee, I like that, that's good.
Boy.
Tough crowd.
You're
Boy,
harsh.
what a tough crowd.
Yeah, it's a tough crowd, right, Dave?
Get rid of that dog when you turn
I am
70.
a problem maker tonight.
You mean I gotta pay for my dog license?
Currently you do, Dave.
Dave, I think you might have to abstain from that.
Goodness.
It's like, it's almost 11 o'clock.
I mean, it's another way of reducing the burden on seniors age 70 or older, right? We voted at last town meeting to increase the amount that was provided under the program to working with the town and town offices.
Yeah, but that's providing a service to the town. That's
No,
working.
I get that. I get that.
And there are,
Town meetings
and
over
if
the
we're
senior
gonna,
center.
there are numerous programs with the, you know, where you can get, I'm sorry, you know, I wanna say the word discount, but that's not appropriate, on your taxes based on your economic situation as an elderly.
It's an abatement.
Thank you. I'm like, I need another cup of coffee. Right, exactly. I'll have to wake him up when I get home. So that we, you know, and I hope people avail themselves of those programs, so. I think, you know.
Any further discussion?
No.
Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's funny how.
Nays?
Aye, huh?
Nay.
It's like the table's tilted.
I don't mind paying.
4-3.
Here we are.
Article 32.
That's the last one?
Here we are.
It is the last one.
All right.
General bylaw amendment, retail use of single-use plastic checkout bags. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I make a motion that we accept Article 32, the amendment for retail use of single-use plastic checkout bags as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
So this,
We have more information, I had a couple questions, I looked up the
Okay?
Do you want the answers for this discussion?
It depends on what the question was.
You asked if the market basket bags, the 10-cent bags were recyclable. According to Market Basket, they are. You can recycle the 10-cent reusable bags.
Are we talking about I'm talking about the 6 mil, like CVS bags,
Well,
not the Market Basket ones.
Well, that came up in that discussion and there was a lot of.
Because my understanding is that they're causing issues. Okay.
Well, I thought.
It's more of a statement than a question.
I thought you were talking about the Market Basket.
No.
And those are, if those are recyclable. Yes. The 10-cent reusable are recyclable. And the increased use of the trash bags still results in a net, fairly substantive net decrease in the overall plastic bags that are used in California.
Okay.
I'm for this measure.
You were for it last year, too.
I am,
Yeah.
and I'm consistent. So.
You are, yes, you are.
And just so you know, I did say last year that I was going to fill a reusable bag full of food and give it to the food pantry along with extra reusable bags, and I did that.
Oh, good go.
Such a good doobie.
I feel like that was a little self-serving, Kathy. Yeah.
I said I was gonna do it, and I did it, and they got the extra bags.
Guess what I did?
And I voted against the senior people getting their
All should fill our
$15 dog
bags and
license
take
too,
them in
so.
next week. Yes.
So last year, this, as far as I know, verbatim, article came forward. We recommended against it 4-3. It was voted down 71 to 42. Well, I'm sorry, 71 to 46 at town meeting. I don't recall if there was constructive feedback at town meeting about kind of like the historic of come back with this, but
No, I think it was more, don't take away our bags.
yeah, you'd already got my straw and my styrofoam.
Yeah, I think it was a lot, it was a lot of one
It was
night.
late.
And the topic of the bag being unhealthy.
Yeah,
Getting
so-
Actually,
sick
the
from
bag article came first. It came before 11 o'clock. Then a third of the town meeting representatives left,
Yeah.
and we extended into 11:30, and the vote was called on both of the subsequent articles, the straw and the styrofoam.
So one of the things that I think I probably first heard this in college a long time ago, but you hear it every now and then, is that if you read an article with a question as the headline, the answer is almost always no. There were 2 articles by NPR and National Geographic, not exactly in the pocket of big plastic. Are plastic bag bans garbage? Plastic bag bans are spreading, but are they truly effective?
So that NPR article is one I read.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic, if you Google plastic bag bans, you find a lot, and on both sides.
Yep.
We've talked about the California study that is in here as well. The small 4-gallon bags increased by 120% in sales after the ban went into effect in California. The author of that study suggested or recommended that a ban is not the smartest way to go, charge a fee. We talked about those options. I don't want to be number 123. Just let the state do its thing and sort this out. And there was mention of, and it wasn't taken as being snarky of why not, and there was a comment made about being symbolic. I'm not convinced that doing something for symbolicism is a good reason to do it.
Symbolism.
We often hear, I think we've heard it in at least 2, if not 3 articles tonight, that everybody else is doing it. I don't buy that either. We're not lemmings. We don't have to do it because everybody else is doing it. So I would still be opposed to this.
So here's my take on this, because I don't even remember what I voted for last year.
You were against it last year.
I was. Well, you gotta change my mind again.
No, you're.
No, you were for it last year.
You were for it.
You and Kathy, yeah.
But,
You, Kathy, and Vicky.
Yep.
I work with a lot of young kids, a lot of startups. And I'm finding the trend has been, and we currently don't have it in my office now, no plastic. So we have silverware. People wash their silverware. No paper plates, no paper cups. And, if you look at MIT's doing a big push to figure out how to recycle, how to make durable like plastic stuff, but that is, environmentally friendly, right? There's a big push out there. I hate to lose out to a startup that may want to come to our town. To me, it's.
I'm confused why that would
Because-
lose
I'm
out to
telling
that
you,
startup.
these young kids,
So
that's
here's the
very
same
important
position,
to
and
them.
it's the same argument we had last year. It was the position that people aren't going to do it or aren't doing it. And I know personally, nothing changed in the article from last year. It's just another year down the road. And that concerns me because there were constructive requests that were made and discussions that were had. And it just comes back to us the exact same way it was defeated last year. And all that's changed is we're another year down the road. But we do have legislation that's in the State House. It's currently before the state. And the versions there would preempt all these bylaws that are being made anyway. I know personally, we use reusable bags. We don't use plastic bags. We've reduced that. It's just what we do. But to say that, well, now you have to do it, and because we're imposing this new bylaw, that.
So I am not a recycler. Well, I'm not a very good recycler. Never been.
We fill 2 full barrels every week,
But
every other week,
I
yeah.
can tell you.
We do 3, yeah.
The fact, because I always shop at Stop and Shop, the fact that they give me paper bags. I used to go in there and buy their 10-cent bags so I could bring them up to Maine so I could use them as trash bags. And it took me a while because in my town in Maine, they banned all trash bags. Now I've noticed, I've changed my behavior. I am one of these types of people that is not naturally a recycler. I just never got into it. But I needed it to be banned, people to give me brown, because otherwise I would automatically go to the plastic. And, that's something that's good for everybody. It helps. I don't want these plastics in our environment. I know a couple of people who have very bad forms of cancer. And I've read a lot about, they can't cure the cancer, and a lot of studies are pointing to these plastics in the environment. Maybe this is something that should be forced on people. And I don't think it's a big force, because you yourself are saying it, like you do it more than I do. And the towns all around us do it. So to me now is, why not?
Well,
That is a factor that's changed between the 2 times, is
Yeah.
previously the other communities hadn't voted in favor of it.
There are some that have added, that is true. But there are issues with the thicker mill bags that are being made, because
Yeah, that's a good
that's a way that they are skirting this new implementation. They're bringing a thicker mill bag, and they aren't recyclable. I don't know what people are saying. They're causing the same types of issues, but they're thicker. So it's a bigger imprint upon production, and it's causing issues on the end side as well. And so I don't know.
And here's the other thing. I had visitors from Italy this year, and I had plastic, forks and knives at the beach house, and it kind of took me back. They looked at me and they go, "You can still buy them here?" And to me, I kind of felt silly, but in Italy, they've been banned. Everything plastic's been banned. And I just, I don't know, to me, I kind of felt almost like, yeah, sorry. I felt like, I was at the beach, I want plastic utensils, but I don't know, that's what's changed, at least for me, from last year to this year.
So I voted against it last year. I waver between using plastic and using reusable bags, because I'm horrible. I never leave them in my car. So I'll end up at the grocery store and I'll be like, crap, I'm not driving home. I'm just gonna take a plastic bag. But when we were visiting my parents in New York, I have no problem, because I don't have them with me there. I have no problem paying 5 cents for it if I need them. But there's many a times where they're like, do you need a bag? And I'm like, it's a loaf of bread. No, I'm good. Or it's a pack of beer. No, I'm fine. But I feel like while it's something we should be doing, it's something that everybody should do. I still have a hard time forcing people into this. I'm one for someone who doesn't like regulations. like, you know.
For regulation's sake, yeah.
Right, the overreaching of government, and so that's I do truly appreciate the new approach. Your presentation was very good, and I appreciated that, but like Jim said,
It was a lot less heavy-handed.
it was a lot less
I will give
heavy-handed,
you that,
absolutely.
certainly.
And it felt much more collaborative. That being said, though, the article is still exactly the same, and my opinion of imposing this on people hasn't changed. Well, do I think everyone should do it? Absolutely, but I don't feel it's our right to force people into it. I just feel it's too overreaching.
So I guess you can come at this from a few different angles. It seems like tonight we've talked about, you know, the death of the bag and the birth of the bag, which I'd never considered the birth of the bag. So that
Sorry, that was my term.
that was an enlightening term.
I didn't know how else to say it.
But, you know, for those that are against it just because this might be more on the birth side. I'm never going to forget that. Again, the same economist that did the study that's cited by NPR and National Geographic says that paper bags can be worse for the environment. You cut down trees, you process trees, you use water, toxic chemicals, fuel, heavy machinery. While paper is biodegradable and avoids some of the problems of plastic, she says it's a huge increase of paper together with the uptick in the plastic trash bags. Again, the bags that people are now buying because they can't use these other bags means banning plastic shopping bags increases greenhouse gas emissions. Acknowledging that it still does reduce the non-biodegradable litter, but it's not, this isn't saving the planet in the grand scheme of saving the planet. It's replacing one bad thing for another bad thing.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna solve the climate crisis tonight, you know, but I think we all just have to vote our conscience.
I have a little different view. Last year, I was definitely against this. And Eric's arguments tonight kind of dampened my vote a little bit, but I fundamentally do believe that it is an environmental problem. And I would think with what we've seen recently on TV and everything, we owe it to the youth to start taking some of these issues a little more seriously. At least I do. I can't speak for anybody else. I think we have an opportunity to set an example and send a vote to the kids that we're taking this, that we hear them, because they clearly are going to be around for a lot more longer than we are. And I think it's pretty clear where they are on these issues. So I'm going to vote in favor of this, even though I hate for government to tell me to do anything.
There you go.
But that's where I am on the issue.
And I can tell you, my son would kill me if I didn't vote for this.
Oh, so you're being
They remind
influenced.
us
By
all
my
the
son,
time.
yeah,
My children remind me all the time.
yep. As my kids go and pick up all the trash on the beach.
John, do we have the legal opinion?
Regarding the fee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent it to you, but I know you wouldn't be able to read it during the meeting, but
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah, do you mind? Yeah.
Refreshed my memory from.
Because, yeah, no, honestly.
Because it was back in 2016. So the issue with the fee is town council, our former town council firm indicated at that time that for a municipality to charge a fee, there's a famous case, Emerson College versus the city of Boston from 1984. With being late, I won't go through. But a municipal fee to be instituted has to pass a 3-pronged test. And the attorney at that time said that if we instituted, because the former recycling coordinator had expressed the committee's wishes to me, if the town cannot, if we did institute some type of fee like that, courts and state government would most likely strike it down as an illegal tax because it didn't pass the 3-pronged test. We can go through that and discuss it at the next meeting if you want, but
Is that because we're a town and not a city?
That, we'd have to go back and look. This was,
Cambridge has one.
yeah, this is back in
Boston has one.
2016, so I mean, we haven't revisited with an attorney since that time. But I can tell you, you know, we can't institute our own tax because the state legislature hasn't authorized us to have such a tax. And the attorney at that time, Mr. Giorgio, had indicated that he didn't feel that the fee would pass those
Pass the
tests,
three-prong
the
test.
three-prong test. Again, I'm a finance person, I'm not a leap,
Yeah.
so we could try to revisit that, but that's what I was told in 2016.
I'm just interested because Boston and Cambridge have both done it. So-
Yep.
But they're cities. So is this a city versus a town thing? Or is this that,
That would be my
that the
question.
rules have just changed?
What, yeah, how
Or the,
how
or
it was
the, or
approached.
the precedent has been set aside?
And I'd like clarification on the difference between who collects the money, who
Right.
receives the money at the end, the store versus the town, and if that's the difference.
Oh,
If
yeah.
the store can keep
The money, then it's really not us
as a
implementing
way
it,
of
it's the store
offsetting
implementing.
cost of the
Thicker bags, or, yeah.
Because I'm quite frankly more concerned about the economic impact of this, and I think that fee is a deterrent. That it creates the same type of situation. However, it also alleviates any type of increase in cost, which is why we brought it up initially last year.
I mean, my own personal opinion, if I'm running a supermarket in town and I decide that I want to charge, I'm going to have a new policy and I put up a sign, I'm going to charge every customer 10 cents for a bag.
Yeah.
I don't know what it will do to my business, but that's my business, that's, you're right as a business owner.
Who's the
in my
government to tell
opinion.
me to do that?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I understand.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
I would love to see a way to have that instituted. I think that would be the proper way to do it.
I agree.
I am concerned about the thicker milk plastic bags.
This little charge? Money?
No,
No.
they do not. I think it's all gonna be moot soon anyway. I think they are gonna, the legislation is gonna pass, quite frankly.
Right, we don't know what it's gonna look like, so.
No, we don't know what it's gonna
we
look
could-
like.
We could vote this in.
I
we
very
could vote
much,
it in with a fee,
I
it
do
doesn't
not
matter,
believe
yeah.
that the exemption is gonna be removed from that, because they want, the whole idea behind it is to have a uniformity across the state, which makes sense. I understand why they put that in there. So I think we're heading that way, so, which makes this whole vote, quite frankly, moot.
You've struggled tonight for your
I have.
decisions.
Well, yeah, because we wanna make sure that we're making the right recommendation.
Well, the other thing is that should information come up, they could always accept a friendly amendment.
They couldn't add a fee or something like that, it would go beyond the scope of the article.
That wouldn't be a
So
friendly
no,
amendment?
that would not be a friendly amendment. You can't do that. You can't change the scope or increase something like that because it's not proper notice. We talked about that last year.
It's fine.
Yeah. So no, unfortunately.
It could be a unfriendly amendment.
No. At that point in time, you would really have to pull the article and bring it back to the next town meeting. That would be the only way to do it.
Good try, though.
Unfriendly, I like that. Unfriendly amendment?
Well, where everybody votes.
That's just an amendment. Yeah, that's just, yeah. A friendly amendment is when the proponent of the article says, yes, I agree, I think that's fine, and then they add it to it. An amendment would be an unfriendly amendment, where the proponent article says, I don't want to add that, so
they
argue against it, or they say, this is why I don't want to have this. So your unfriendly amendment does exist. It's just not called an unfriendly amendment because it would probably deter people from voting on it.
But I do like their point of why they didn't put the fee in there, because they didn't want to.
No, I get, given that, yeah.
I appreciate that, and I think that's, fair. I mean, though I love the fee, but,
We want to hit midnight, Paul.
We're just gonna
That's
hang
our
out
goal.
for 45 minutes.
Just gonna chill here.
Could you take tomorrow? I'm angry at you, because now you have me reconsidering.
Same here. I
Very
think this,
angry at you,
I don't
David.
like changing my mind.
Don't be angry, just go along with me.
We could have been out of here by 8:30 if you just agreed.
I know, right? If we just agreed with David all night, we would have been out of here by already. Yeah, that's true.
Excuse me.
How do I make a motion to move the question at a FinCom meeting?
I know, I don't think, just shove Jim.
You can make that motion. You were allowed to do that. Robert's rules allow you to.
I'll make a motion to move the question.
I second.
Discussion?
Second, you've got to be second.
Oh, sorry, no discussion on that's true. That you are correct. You are correct. Sorry, it's a little late. It's a all those in favor? Aye.
Question.
Any nays or abstentions? No. Okay. Can put that in the minutes. That's a first.
It's 11:20.
We all changed our vote.
All those in.
Because of David.
No, we just
No,
voted for.
No, we're moving straight to. We haven't voted yet. All we voted on is to move the question.
Okay.
There'll be no further discussion.
All right.
All those in favor of the underlying article?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions?
Nay.
6-1.
Congratulations.
Good luck.
There goes the town meeting.
Make a
I
motion.
think it's like.
Well, meeting will be wild.
But presentation is everything.
I don't know. I think,
All right.
It's
Well,
a year later.
we're-
You never know.
We're done. We're done. I know. I think it's moved because I think
I got your point.
legislators can act on underlying article at the state level. But anyway,
Yeah. Are we, what's
we're not
next
done
on the
yet.
agenda?
Don't go anywhere.
Can we get a 5-minute break?
we're gonna end.
No, we're almost
It
done.
had to make a motion. 5 things.
Public
I
comment.
am not pulling this vehicle over.
All right, well then you guys go make a motion to.
No, no.
Public comments.
Any public comment?
I'm dying here. I know.
Yes, not to prolong her, but I just want to let the committee know of a couple upcoming dates.
Oh, okay.
Certainly.
There's going to be a presentation on October 15th at the police station training room before a joint board meeting of the Planning Board, Historic District Commission, Senate Village Master Plan Commission, and Conservation Commission regarding the redevelopment of the Oddfellow Santander Fiscals property.
What property is that?
It's going to be televised and so forth.
Is that the Santander Bank?
The parcel in the center.
Oh, the old Santander Bank. Okay.
There's going to be discussion that
Yep.
evening, so I just wanted to be aware of that because I know you're interested in economic redevelopment activities.
This is actually going forward.
Yes.
We're
And
past.
Remember, the lease expires June 30th,
June.
2020.
Yep.
So there's going to be a presentation to the joint boards, and then obviously the selectmen have been notified already.
Who is getting this presentation?
It'll be by the project applicants.
So they have a proposal.
Yes.
Do we know what that proposal is?
I do not have any plans of that proposal.
Okay.
In my possession. There was a meeting in this room yesterday, I guess still, with the applicant. So yes, we do have
Okay.
a conceptual plan of what's going to take place. I wanted the commission to be aware of that. That's coming up on the 15th.
October 15th, 7 p.m. you said?
7 p.m. over at the police station.
Police station.
And again, it will be on telemedia.
Good.
Good.
Yes, very much so.
Then you said there's another date?
Well, related to that, the 9 Acton Road one, going back to the planning board at the end of October, I think the 30th. But the other one I want you to be aware of, the financial audit is going to be scheduled to be presented to the Board of Selectmen on Monday, November 4th. Charles and Sullivan will be scheduled to come in that evening, present the financial audit
Okay.
to the board. And then the tax classification hearing would be following that on November 18th. Sort of the outlooking schedule in terms of the fall. Just wanted to make it.
I'd love to hear 1 year after, yeah.
Those coming days.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none? Oh, I did pass, I'm sorry, I passed over a discussion on Finance Committee Warren Brook production. Pam, can you just give us the date rundown? I don't have the sheet in front of me. Today is the 26th.
Okay, last day for recommendations, so that's done.
Oh, good.
Draft of chairman's letter, I have the 28th.
Yeah, okay.
Of October.
October, yeah.
And then,
That's like Saturday.
sending out the book for review. Final imports October 1st. I have the final chairman's letter October 2nd.
So October 2nd it is.
And then the book delivered to the printer October 3rd.
Third, okay. And that puts us 3 weeks out or 2 weeks out?
When's the meeting?
What's happening? 21st, so,
The paper books will be at Town Hall October 2nd.
okay, we've got slight wiggle room. All right, thank you. So if you had a nay or abstention, if you could please just send me a quick little synopsis like we did last time on your position, so I can include it in the letter.
Does that include for the one we all said nay to?
No, not for that one, but
Okay.
for the other ones.
All right.
If we could have a brief synopsis as to what your position was, so that it's properly presented in the book, I'd be appreciated. I'm sorry, what?
As if I remember which one's I.
Yeah, well, we can send it on, I took a vote, yeah. Any further public comment? Seeing none. Press questions, there is no press this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, see you in the town meeting.